Mute, we got it, we got it, we got
It
it.
is recording. Good.
Yep. Oh,
Okay,
thank
so
God.
where was my pause? There it is.
All right. It's Tuesday, January the 18th, 2022. So we'll go ahead and start here with call to order.
Dana Bergner,
Ryla Nyquist.
Jim Richards.
Jim Phillips.
Okay.
The agenda, I would like to make one add. And that's in the Parks and Trails under J. And it'd be I. What it is, it's paving Riverwood Hills Park Trails from Istis Lane Southwest to within 300 feet of the playground. This is something mentioned in Parks and Trails, but I missed it when I looked at the agenda, and I didn't see the Parks report either, so. Let me make a motion that we add that to our agenda under Parks and Trails. Is there a second?
A second.
Second, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Public forum is a 3-minute time limit. The city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your concerns. We also request that your comments be limited to 3 minutes and speakers will be recognized only once. At this time, we ask that anyone who would like to address the city council to please step up to the podium and state your name and address and fill out a form that's on the podium. So with that, if there's anybody that'd like to speak. A second call for public forum. And third and final call for public forum. Before we conclude our public forum and get to our agenda, we have on our agenda Outstanding Citizen Award, and Skylar is one of our members on the Outstanding Citizen Award team. So, Skylar.
Good evening. Good evening for having me. Skylar Bridenstine, 540 Bellevue Road Southwest, 55960. All right. So I'm Skylar Bridenstine, along with Mayor Eichhorst, Bo Hannenberger, and myself. We serve on council many years together, and Bo and I continue to serve on Orinoco's Outstanding Citizens Committee. Regretfully, Bo was called away for work and is unable to be here tonight, but sends his gratitude to council, his apologies that you have to put up with my coffee breath and bad jokes. Wait, what was that? Sorry. And his congratulations to this year's Orinoco's Outstanding Citizens. Many years ago, when I served on council, Orinoco tragically lost businessman Gordy Curable. When I came up with the idea for this award to honor Gordy with help from his nephew Mac and the support of his wife Yvonne, I saw a need to recognize so many people who give back to our community in Orinoco, our hidden gem in Southeast Minnesota. Without these types of volunteers, the city wouldn't survive, let alone thrive. The award hangs to the right just as you enter the community center. Current and past residents can be nominated annually as long as when they volunteered, they resided within the city of Orinoco. The next nomination window will be later this summer and fall. The first awardee for 2021 began volunteering in Orinoco many years ago with the VFW Auxiliary and now serves as the VFW Auxiliary President. She does outreach with local schools, thanking our military members, our veterans, their families, and especially around Veterans Day. In addition, she also delivers meals to those in need in our community. Second awardee for 2021 also began volunteering in Orinoco so many years ago with the Water and Sewer Committee, still a member. Also has been a long time volunteer at the VFW, is currently quartermaster, and also in addition delivers meals to those in need in our community. It's been said by so many that I contacted about this year's awardees that these two that serve the community as a team, and since thankfully with your council agreement, it made sense to recognize them both. So therefore, for the first time in Orinoco history, I'd like to congratulate the first couple ever to be awarded as Orinoco's Outstanding Citizens, Ross and Sharon Parker. So, the mayor has certificates for you. This is a high dollar deal. Is council okay with the picture? And are you guys okay with the picture with council? Or do you just want a picture outside in the hall next to the award? It's up to you.
I don't think it's pictures, I don't care.
Or I can just get a picture of you guys.
Have Jim take a picture of the four of us.
That's- You guys are doing it.
Congratulations. I'll do the two of them first. That's fine.
You can't see it. Thank you.
We'll get one out in the hall.
Sure. You want to order four of us. You'll find.
Oh, now you take. No, we're doing a retake if you're doing that. He moves in and then you take it off.
It's on your camera.
Okay. And smile this time we'll receive. Okay. You guys want in? Yeah.
I think.
I don't, but they deserve it.
I'm just gonna get one quick for our, okay? Wow. Okay, do we want one with all the council or no? Do you guys feel comfortable? It would be nice for our page.
Yeah, it'd be crazy nice.
Jim and Jim, the Jims? The Jims, there's two of them, I'm like Jim and Jim.
Jim.
Yeah, that's strange. Thank you.
Just have to find a window.
You're fine.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
That's okay.
Thank you, council.
Congratulations.
Facebook.
Okay. Very well done.
That's my question.
You got one.
I know, he told us his whole plan. It was wonderful. Good job, Skylar.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, council.
Thank you. It's always a fun event, especially when it's a surprise too. All right. Sergeant Chambers is not here, or with the sheriff's department, so I'll go ahead. In our planning and zoning tonight, we have two presentations. One is by Manessa Kabaki, who was here before, and Chris Eason from CETA. We'll have Manessa go first and kind of give us an overview what he's currently thinking, developing in downtown Orinoco. Mike?
Yep. Mike.
Larry, oh, there's Mike, okay. See the screen, please.
Oh, sorry. I was not paying attention.
I wanted to come in and kind of briefly talk about our development plan that kind of sent over a schematic site plan. I don't know if you can pull that up or not. I did.
What did he say?
I don't think I can pull it up. Just my email on that one.
So we're looking at the land that the city owns here on First Ave, northwest, and then First Ave northwest here, just around the corner. And we're looking to develop 10 units, independent living, senior housing. That'll be, there you go. Thank you, Joe. That'll be one level, it'll be a total of 1,300 square foot, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage, slab on grade, portable housing for seniors. that we're looking at develop. One of the things we just wanted to kind of talk about was just the square footage, the floor planning, and the type of housing that we're looking to do right here in the downtown area, with expansion of our bigger development outside of town. With the development of senior housing, we feel like it's going to free up housing for first-time buyers right down here in the downtown area. And then also the timeline that DBS Design Build Solution looking from start to finish between 6 and 9 months. Granted, everything goes according to zoning and planning, permits, and also engagement from the community. So with that, I was hoping we'll be able to get a site plan that I sent over, but if not, I have a copy of it here. I'll get on it.
Something you sent to me or
I sent to the email you provided to me.
Orinoco agenda?
Correct.
I can't access it through here that I know of.
She has to be on a desktop.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize you had, okay, well, we'll just pass this around, so.
Yeah. Open to any questions that anybody might have.
So these 10 units are you, is it anything to do with the county housing or anything like that, or is it strictly your own, your investor group yourself?
Correct.
Funding is not an outside support from any other organizations or anything like that?
Correct.
So is this anything to do with low income housing?
So it's going to be affordable senior housing.
Okay. And always senior? What do you consider senior?
55 plus.
Okay.
Then you mentioned first-time home buyer. Where does that fall in?
Yeah, so the goal would be to provide the 10 units of senior housing to free up some of the homes that are currently existing right now in the downtown area for first-time home buyers. We're also looking to work, together with the city on, right now, a schematic site plan is calling for, 1,300 square foot. We're willing to work, if that means we can scale it down a little bit, or we can go even higher based on the trajectory and landmark there.
And just to be clear, all of these units are assisted living units?
So these would be all independent living.
Okay.
And then our phase 2 is going to be assisted living units.
You can have sharing home, you can have another person that there is in there, multiple people in there besides the adults, the older people.
Yeah, so they could be a caregiver if need be, but they are going to be 2 bedroom, 2 bath homes.
Is there a restriction on the number of caregivers that can be in there?
No. And I also shared another document from the Senior Housing Community Co-Design that also just talks about everything that seniors are looking for in the community. And most of that highlights what our organization is going to be providing from independent living all the way to assisted hospice and memory care. But the focus is to focus on hope and dignity, and also providing that independence that everybody seeks. So,
You're looking at phase one, okay, and then you mentioned phase two. Where's phase two gonna be at?
So phase two is on the other side of the highway. Joe kind of threw it up here.
Yeah, so they're looking actually in this vicinity, way over here.
Okay, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to start over there and put phase one over there and phase two both together?
It's possible we could do that, but you know, with the downtown area, we're looking at putting more development here, as people are already in this area here. But with that area there, that's about 68 acres, so we could do a lot more than what the plan is for that. And we'll share that on our later developments with that plan.
So with our sewer project and your 6 to 9 month start to finish is what you're planning on.
Correct.
So this building would mostly be done in 2023 then,
Yeah, so it'll
to
be
time in with our sewer.
definitely.
Oh, there's probably several zoning issues. And that, I think the zoning alone, Minnesota Avenue is B2.
Okay.
And then the back one, west side up on the hill is right now R1, so there have to be some zoning changes or variances, and those will have to go through the planning and zoning commission process and everything, so.
You know, if your site plan is incorporating already the setbacks?
Yes.
Okay.
I know also at the last meeting, when we were talking about it, you were mentioning what we had for police and other for rescue ambulance.
First responders, we don't have an ambulance service.
You know, so that would be also a consideration to take a look at, you know, at this to keep in mind. We don't have those facilities.
I think our, for this 10 unit that we're talking about, I think our first responders and fire department are more than capable of that. And we are very, very close to the Mayo ambulance service. Dan Sunt would probably, or Kane would probably be good at, Dan would probably be able to back me up on that, but
Okay. I was just, again, we mentioned that last month. And so,
I think it's very important as we look at the phase 2 part of it. But if we're talking about moving people out of their current homes that already live here, like, I don't know if a lot of people, seniors will be looking to move to Orinoco. I think it'll be more like people will be able to stay in Orinoco. So they'll be in a better situation than they probably currently are in their own homes. Which would mean safer and possibly less ambulance calls.
Right.
Joe, do you have any, do you want to take a look at that?
Yeah, you want to take?
Yeah, I'd love to.
I was gonna ask if Joe knows if that would change anything in terms of water and sewer downtown.
Not off the top of my, my assumption is no, we would be able to service these. You know, we'd obviously have to add additional services for the individual units, but we have the facilities within the area to serve them.
Okay.
And your engineer Jeff, he was able to come out and look the site too?
Yeah, so Jeff came out. Unfortunately, he's in Michigan now. Hopefully he doesn't get stuck with the snowstorm there. But that's something that, you know, if we need further discussion, the four of us could kind of sit down, or if he could be present at our next city council meeting.
Sure. Okay. I like the approach. I think it's something good for downtown Orinoco, and I think it's like Dana said, for those people that don't want to leave downtown Orinoco, but still very sufficient and everything, you know, self-serving. Excellent opportunity. I like the idea of having fairly large front yard too, set back from the street. I think that's a nice feature too.
Can you forward that email to us? So then we all have the.
When we get back in the office,
Yes,
we don't have
yes,
access
of
to
course.
it.
Yep.
So looking at the grade, the grades out there are significant, and these are single floor. I'm assuming same floor with the garage, so there's minimal steps up or down.
Right.
So would you be incorporating retaining walls, or how would you fit those units into the topography?
Yeah, so the goal is to have it align with the environment that's already there, and also whatever is needed, city requirements, to make it up to code.
You comment on the handout about from Coalition of Rochester Area Housing. Is this something you use as a guideline for this development, or is it something?
Also, just looking at some of the answers and interview questions that other seniors had in the community, Rochester and so forth, where everything that they are talking about is something that regeneration is going to incorporate, from independent living to smaller homes to slab on grade, bigger entryway. So I just wanted to kind of let you know what the seniors would like to see in a community or a facility that's providing senior housing.
We do have a new group that just formed recently that is working toward becoming a more age-friendly community. It is Dan Howard from the AARP, I believe he's AARP in Rochester, is helping. I think, is Rosemary on? Can you pull that up further. Rosemary Van Hout is the person who has, yep, there she is. So she has been the person that has kind of spearheaded this work.
Okay.
And we do have a meeting tomorrow night. If you'd like to pop into that, it's on Zoom. I can send you the,
I could definitely do it.
okay, all right. I can send you the information for that.
All right, any other questions for Vanessa right now? Was Rosemary going to say something?
Oh, maybe. Did you want to say something, Rosemary?
Well, I was just gonna say it's Dan Conway from the Area Agency on Aging. That is basically organizing this, and we are going to have a speaker from AARP with an overview from what Minnesota is doing and what they're looking at, and then also a representative from Olmsted County, who will also be speaking and giving a little presentation as to what's going on in Olmsted County and how we could fit into that.
Perfect. Thank you for correcting the names for me.
All right,
Do you have any other questions?
I do not on my end.
so one question about the.
Thank you, Rosemary.
You're welcome.
What is your idea about this grading into the garages on the top? I think as Joe kind of hit on too for the bottom ones here, but for the top one, the garages will all be from the front, so this would be facing to the west, the front of the apartments, is that right?
I'd be interested to see the site plan. Because that, just the grade alone makes me wonder,
Right.
you know,
So,
how that would happen.
right. So the one thing, I guess, there's a couple of things the city probably needs to look at is one, the consensus from the council for a position to sell those 3 properties, and asking, what we would consider having appraised for. Would be probably the second, another question that the city would have to take a look at. We could direct city staff to seek out an appraisal for that land. I think it'd be, those are just some, my random initial thoughts. I think if, I don't know if you've given any thought to a residential survey for downtown Orinoco for the residents here, how we could solicit more input into the project. Might be another feature that we may want to have you consider. So those are some thoughts I think we should make sure that the city itself is aware of what your project is, and you can get some good feedback too as well. And it kind of helps promote it. And so the other aspect of this, and we're just kind of searching new ground here with something like this, is that we've just adopted for 2022 a planning services through Stantec that will help us with assessing proposals like this, making sure it meets the codes, and kind of assist planning and zoning commission in making good decisions. So we just implemented that here in 2022. So that's another aspect we may want to consider as well.
And to that point too, I think it would definitely need some discussion, because we have turned down because that would be considered spot zoning, correct?
No, not necessarily.
Maybe Mike or
Wouldn't?
No, not necessarily. Spot zoning is, everybody thinks everything is spot zoning, and that's not necessarily the case. It's maybe more complicated than tonight's meeting, but I certainly think there's going to be zoning issues with this, obviously, and you'll have to, address those. When the developer submits a plan or proposal, I think the question is, when do you want to do that? I mean, is now the time to do that, or, having Stantec do that work will be expensive. They'll probably have to do it anyway, but, and it sounds like, I didn't know that the parcels were on opposite sides of the highway. So, there could be different zoning then, for the different phases. And so we'll have to look at all that, both from a planning and a legal perspective. And I think now we know what the plan is. It's in the downtown parcel for not, I was considering it to be like a nursing home, but it's not that. It's just, I assume a homeowner restricted, a homeowners association restricted development, restricted by age, that are townhouses. And so your zoning might not allow for multifamily housing like that. I mean, you might need to do a zoning amendment and rezoning, and it might not necessarily be spot zoning. But that's something that'll have to be investigated. I mean, I can't give you an answer on that tonight.
I think the number one before anything happens is, do we want to sell the land? I mean,
Right.
because if we don't want to sell the land right now, then there's not really any sort of planning to go on the table. And in all due respect, I think it's a fantastic idea, but we have turned down selling the land to another business owner. And I think if we say we're going to sell the land for this specific purpose, then does that, and this is probably a question for Mike, does that get us into hot water because we're not giving other people the opportunity to purchase the land?
No, it doesn't. But I think you're right on. Lori's right on. You don't want to have the developer do all this work either, if you're not really even interested in selling it for this purpose. Certainly if we transferred the property to the developer, there would be a deed restriction on the deed that would require the developer to build the development pursuant to the submitted development plans, and that the city would have the right to have that property revert back to the ownership of the city if the development wasn't completed, within whatever amount of time is reasonable. So, you want to be able to absolutely not. It does not get you in hot water. It is your complete discretion, and for good reason. I mean, you want to have a direction as to how downtown's developed, and the city has no obligation to give equal rights to buy a property. I mean, it's, when the cities sell property, usually they sell it for a specific development purpose, and they know what that purpose is. You know, in the case, taking an example of that, like in a business park, some cities have what are known as business parks. And they plat these business parks with lots that are specifically intended for commercial development. And that's not what this is. This is just not within a business park. This is just a parcel of land, but there's only so much land in the city, and you want to have a say. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is a good or bad idea. It's not up to me. But you would want to consider things like where in town this is located, the zoning of the surrounding areas, traffic and number of factors, innumerable factors. But ultimately, is this the kind of development you want on that parcel? And then if you decide that it is, and you want to explore transferring the property, we can then do the work on all those other issues. I think Lori's right on. Like, the threshold question is, do you want to do that? Is the council interested in that? And I think maybe a good way to start, Ryland and I talked very briefly about this, but maybe getting an appraisal for the property. And so just so you're aware, if you do that the appraisal document, at least the important parts of the appraisal document are non-public. They're not public data until you enter into a purchase and sale agreement for the property, at which time that the values that are contained in the appraisal document and other certain classes of data under the appraisal data statute become public at that time, but not until that time. So you could, and that's obviously meant for strategic reasons. And then the open meeting law allows you to have a closed meeting to discuss appraisal data. So, you could just order that and maybe that's not needed. I mean, I don't want to tell you have to do that. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter how much the property is worth, maybe you just want to pick the development that you want for the property and, irrespective of price. But without knowing how much it's worth, and then separately, there is the issue of whether we can donate the property, which I've looked at. And the answer to that is maybe. To donate the property, and there again, that would be a policy decision for the council. I mean, do you want to donate the property, or do you want to try and sell it for a fair value or a certain value? But maybe before I was under the impression this was a nursing home, and I found a statutory allowance to do that. There's also the issue of whether this is a business subsidy. The city doesn't have a business subsidy policy, to my knowledge. It might not be a business subsidy based on the type of development, the fact that it's low income. It could be considered assistance for housing, and you wouldn't have to do a business subsidy agreement. But again, those are kind of devils are in the details there. You got to kind of know what's going on. So before we do all that work, it might be helpful to know if this is something you want to do. And then we can do a bunch of work if it's something you're interested in.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, I think it's, if you look at our comprehensive plan, although it was written, it needs to be updated, it was written in 2006, but it talked about our sewer project and the need for senior housing, and it hits all of the buttons we're talking about here, even though it's 13, 14 years ago. It's all the same thing. It's all predicated because of the sewer project. So we know that it's a needed, still is a needed issue. So I would, I think as a council, I don't know if we can make a decision tonight, but I think we need to kind of think about it and just really, now that we have something a little bit more definitive than what we had at your first presentation. It was a little more definitive, I think. The one thing that kind of, I know it's a small print, but I'm just concerned about the setbacks and the site plans, and this is kind of it's definitely a preliminary site plan, so it's nothing cast in concrete, but.
Yeah.
But before that, before I spend any money, I appreciate you not to have to put out the expenditure we need to determine as a council if we're willing to consider this and how it fits on the lot. And that's, something will fit there. That's not an issue.
Right.
It's just a matter of if it's our guidelines. But I think the council needs to decide if we're interested in doing this, and I think what I'd like to do is to we'll get a copy and get this sent out to everybody, the information that you have, that you shared with us tonight, and give everybody a chance to look at it. And go ahead, Lori.
One of the things that I would kind of appreciate is, I mean, everybody that comes through with any sort of plan or development has to go before the Planning and Zoning Committee with their site plan, and they're really the ones that know what's going on in the city. They know the developments that are coming and going, and present to them, and then they generally will give us a recommendation. Yes, we think we should move forward. No, we don't think this is a great idea. And especially since we're looking at rezoning, it's gonna have to go before them anyway, before it comes here. And I feel like for me, I don't wanna skip the process. I don't wanna jump forward and say, yeah, let's dive into this, and then have it go to zoning, planning and zoning, and have that committee look at it and say, there's no way, we're, let's relook at this. So that would be my
And that's a good suggestion. We've done that
hope.
on many projects that have come to, like you did the first time at P and Z.
Right.
Now that you've got a little more definitive idea of what you want, that, I'd encourage you to do that at the next February meeting, the second Thursday of the month. And you can share that with the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they can be looking at that, comparing it to the zoning, and just kind of throw things back to you about what it would take. It still would involve engineering on your side or our side. In the meantime, we can get all this information to each of the council members. Review it more, just give it more thought. We'll talk about it, different committees, get people's feedback.
And move forward with the appraisal process, or no? Because I think that is
That's,
before we have asked the developers to do more work.
Yeah, right.
It would
I think
make
we need to go to planning and zoning first to get a recommendation, and then come back here. And then I think the council needs to talk about whether we want to, the city wants to sell it or not. And then the rest of it can happen. That's my feeling.
I agree with that. You know, if we could have that, so then I'm not, wasting any time or anything like that. Really appreciate it.
in the meantime, we can have city staff see what it costs to get an appraisal, just to have that
Yeah.
information too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
any other questions for us or anybody else has any comments?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll make sure we have all those 3 or 4 pieces of information, Renee, is that right? We have all this information that you can scan and send it out to all of us.
I haven't been able to check the agenda either, so.
If not there, we got take those copies and scan them and send them to everybody. Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Sita.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to see you guys again. Chris Eason with Community and Economic Development Associates, or CETA. Out of Chatfield, I was here a few months ago talking about doing some economic development consulting work with the city and staffing for the community to help with projects just like the one that you guys were just talking about. And a bunch of other things too that we could do. As we got talking about that process and what we might be able to do and how that might work and what might look like and those types of things, realizing that you don't have an economic development authority established, that you haven't had the practices set up in the past to do those types of things, and that there's a lot of things that might be coming your way just with the new sewer project and all the growth that's projected in this corridor. We got talking that, it might be something that we could help you establish that EDA, walk you through that first process of setting up that work plan, discussing those best practices, discussing those priorities that you have for the community and your vision of what you see Orinoco in 5, 10, 20, 50 years. And that does a couple things. You know, we can jump right in and start working on projects, but I think having a good base of what those projects should be and maybe what the priorities are would be more successful for everybody involved. For us, for you, for the community, for the residents, and ultimately better projects for you. So working with the mayor, we came up with an idea of how we would do that. We put a proposal together, which should be in your packets. It's pretty simplistic. Basically, the end goal is to establish an EDA and have your first work plan. EDA work plans are by nature kind of a fluid document, but it is putting, 2, 3 goals, 5 goals, whatever it might be, on paper and saying, these are what we're trying to work for. It might be housing, might be a hotel, it might be, we want a dog park, or something very, very specific, or something more general. So there's a lot of different things that can go into that, but ultimately it has to have the buy-in from the council. It has to have your vision kind of tied into it, or it's not going to be successful. If you're going to create an EDA and ask volunteers to be on it and spend their time working on projects, you want to make sure they have the tools to be successful and feel like they're contributing. So with that, we did put together kind of a series of kind of guided meetings, if you will, a guided process that we would be happy to help you with to get through that. Talking about what an EDA is, some training on economic development authorities in general, best practices from an EDA standpoint, and then identifying, what and who might be on the EDA, getting them involved, and getting involved into, what are those priorities, looking at your comp plan, looking at projects that are already on the books, prospects, or just kind of those wish list items too. So really the possibilities are endless when it comes to that, but just having somebody to kind of guide you through with those best practices, since you haven't done that yet and you haven't had staff yet help you with that process. We're projecting that would probably be maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months, plus or minus, depending on how in depth you really want to go. And that's something that we could be very flexible on how that would work. We would bill that out at our normal project rate, which would be $89 an hour. And we're projecting no more than 30 hours. And that's including if we ended up doing more of those meetings versus less of those meetings. But I think, to get a good solid base of what it is you'd like to see out of a development authority, getting some of those base policies in practice or in place. The city attorney mentioned a business subsidy policy. Well, what types of businesses do you want to subsidize, if any? Those types of questions are the things that you want to think about and have those discussions with whoever's going to be on your EDA, whether that's the city council as a whole, maybe you have some community leaders and business owners mixed in there. It's just a matter of going through those conversations and getting you guys up and running, and then you're kind of off to the races. And that would be something that I would be there to help you with that. We'd probably bring somebody along from our team that may be involved with you more long-term if you do decide to work with us as a staffing agency for your EDA. But just here to be a helping hand to get you up on the right foot and see what we can do to help you guys be successful for the long term on there. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did include kind of the layout as to what those meetings might look like. Just trying to see what questions might come up about the process, about establishing an EDA. It's a very simple process at the root, but the big question is, what do you want to see happen as a community? Where do you want to see yourselves going?
Yeah, your letter was in our packet, so everybody
Wonderful.
had a chance to take a look at it, so. Couple comments. One is the EDA, are they self-sufficient, or do we have to have line items in our budget to cover EDA expenses typically, or?
In a city this size, typically you treat it as they do have the authority to tax on their own if you gave them that authority. So that would be a discussion we could set up in there, and that's statute to define that. And there's a specific formula actually, so you can't go too far overboard. But most cities, especially, I can think of one off the top of my head. I think it's Good View over in Winona County that actually it has an actual funding mechanism through the tax levy, but most of them this size is just an department.
So from a funding standpoint, it's really, if we're going to go out and support put money into buying land or something like that, that's technically a revolving loan fund or something like that. But right now, we don't have any, we didn't budget anything for 2022. We also have the contract for CETA, that kind of fits in the same thing we could use. Outside of materials, I'm not sure if there's going to be much expenditures setting up an EDA other than you're paying your time.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Most EDAs, especially when they just get started out, don't have much in budget, so that's not a concern. You're gonna need somebody, whether it's us or somebody on your team already, or volunteers to kind of maybe navigate some of those administrative aspects and kind of herd the process. You have some office supplies and things like that, kind of to get some postage, things like that, but typically, like a revolving loan fund, you start one of those when you have a project that comes in and you can get a grant. And then all of a sudden the payback on that is how you establish that loan fund. So there's really no city dollars necessarily in that. You might have a project that comes forward where you can use some tax increment financing or something of that nature where you're able to maybe keep a portion back or redirect it into something that creates kind of a self-funding mechanism for projects. So there's a lot of different ways to look at those as they come forward.
More questions will come up as we have the meetings too. So.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, to answer your question, there's not a need for a big chunk of money right away.
Anybody else have questions for Chris?
You staff typically participate in the EDA. I feel like I've been at a Pine Island meeting, chamber meeting where they're all kind of they work together.
Yeah, it can be whichever way you guys see it. Every city has a little bit different personality and philosophy as to how they run meetings and what's important and working with who. But in most of the cases of the communities we staff, we're a part of the process. We're kind of the cheerleader, if you will, to make things move forward. And when it comes to like working with other organizations, whether that's the chamber, a downtown alliance, or whoever those other community civic groups are, that can be between the EDA, that can be between our staff. Really, just however that would work. But Pine Island would be a good example for. Yeah, they do a good job up there.
So from in your process, you identified the 4 meetings, I guess. What's the council members' feeling about going through this process of having the 4 meetings and learning from it?
Well, I think it's important as we grow. I think this is, if we've invested in CETA and we're going to, we've said we're going to move forward with it. I think that it's important we learn the process and we do it the right way and we learn from CETA themselves.
There's a couple of things. What I'd like to do is one, apply for an Operation Roundup grant for the 26. It's about $2,670. 30 hours at 89 or up to $2,700 or something like that. Apply for an Operation Roundup grant to cover that. And as a suggestion for a meeting, and just it's meant for to be a discussion, right now, the 4th week of the month is pretty much an open week for us. And either like a Monday or Tuesday night, the 4th week of the month. Is that fit with, rather than putting another meeting in those first 3 weeks, I think I'd rather. It's a very important, I think it's important to spend the extra time to make sure we do it right, so. Any strong feelings one way or the other?
We'll want to coordinate on the calendar. So
Sure.
I don't have mine in front of me, but for something for me to be there, I just want to make sure I know I have council meetings 4th Monday of the month. So
Why don't you look at the 4th week of the month, starting in February?
Tuesdays are great. Mondays get tough.
Okay.
So, yeah. I will follow up with you.
All right. All right. I don't. Anything else? I don't think we need a motion. I think we just. Do we need a Mike? Do we need a resolution or anything like that? Informally setting up an ADA?
Well, probably, but that's probably something CETA will advise you on. I think you're not doing that tonight. I think you're just, if they have a proposal in the packet, do they have a proposal in the packet?
A letter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you could, if you want to move forward with that, you could just vote to approve is there a contract? Is there gonna be a contract, Chris?
We can set a contract, if this is agreeable to you, we can formalize that with a contract and send it your way. If you wanted to do a motion to approve the proposal or approve a contract, we could definitely do that.
You wouldn't mind doing that, and we'll discuss that at our February meeting, council meeting, which will be before the fourth week, not the third week, so
Absolutely.
that sounds okay. Then we have more of a formal thing to put into our minutes and everything, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, if this is something you guys are interested in doing, I would just suggest that in the meantime, thinking about what those goals are for yourselves as counselors. And then how you might want to involve the public or not. Is this something that the council wants to be very hands-on, or is it something you want to bring in other folks from the community to maybe help with? So those are things that we'll be talking about more in detail, but just to get the wheels spinning.
Well, these fourth, because of our open meeting laws, it would be a public meeting, this fourth meeting of the month, so there would be public people here, but just a matter of allowing them to speak or not. But, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would maybe frame it up too as more of a workshop, just so that there's no expectations
That's a good way to
that action is
explain it, yes.
taken or things like that.
The workshop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll plan on the fourth week of February. We'll have a contract too, if that's agreeable. And
It's
then,
shaken, so I think we're all on board, so thank
Do
you.
we need a motion?
Approve the proposal.
I think we need a motion.
So I make a motion that we proceed with SIA coming back in February with a contract for us to sign. We develop the Economic Development Authority with the potential for having monthly meetings the fourth week of the month for these first 4 meetings. For a second.
Second.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thanks, Chris.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it. We'll see you
Thank
soon.
Stay on the snowdrift.
We'll try to.
All right, Dan. In the essence of time, could we skip the runs and just go for the new member and Casey's gas cutting?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good. So the new member, we're always excited when the interested applicant who used to be on the Zippo and so he's already trained. He lives on the very north side of Rochester, so technically he's out of our territory, but he's 8 minutes from our fire hall and he's already trained, and like I said, he wants to give back, so I kind of, it's a gray area there of, I got somebody, he's already showed up. Last night he came to our maintenance meeting just to get a little more excited, so I'm willing to give him a chance because I got somebody who's already trained, knows how to volunteer and wants to give back. So we could always use more people, especially for fire. So he's not going to do first response because he wouldn't make any of the calls. But from a fire, when you need people, being 8 minutes out is nothing. He works nights, so that means he'd be available during the day, and we can always use more people during the day. He starts work at night, 9 o'clock, so he can attend our meetings. So we're kind of it's a very good kind of mix of people. So at our last meeting, we voted to bring him on. So I'd like to make the same recommendation that the city approve Taylor Armstrong as a firefighter.
Make a motion to approve Taylor Armstrong to the fire department.
Second. Any other comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approved?
Thank you. And then the Casey's gas card. So when Casey's first came in, they had credit cards behind the counter. So when we filled there, we would fill behind the counter. At the Gas and Go, that's what we currently have. We have cards behind the counter, which I like. It's nice that we can, just have people go up and swipe the cards and not have to have cards. And then Casey's went to a system where they didn't want the cards at the hall, but they gave us a key code on the panel. Well, we went to go use it one night and it didn't work. So it's lo and behold, looks like they've made some changes. There's a new process. And so we don't have any support now at Casey's for getting gas because we don't have cards and we don't have a pin or anything that we can do. So I guess I'd like to have support for getting gas at Casey's, when needed. Gas and Go is nice, but if they're closed, I can't fuel up. So it'd be nice to have a set of cards for Casey's so that 24/7, if I needed gas, large fire or something, I need gas, I can get it.
And they'll let you put it behind the counter now again?
Probably not.
Oh,
So
okay.
we would get cards and, we put them in a couple of our vehicles, our
Okay.
tankers and our engines, and we'll manage it that way.
Yeah.
So right now, like I said, we're exposed that if I needed gas at 2 a.m,
Yeah.
I won't be able to get it unless I'd use my own personal card or my city card, being the fire chief, or Keen using his card, but that doesn't mean regular firefighter.
Right.
So it sounds like, Keen's talked to, I'm not sure what we gotta do to reapprove or get Casey's back in the fold, but I think we need, Casey's gas cards so that we have that as an option. Again, we would try to do our monthly maintenance. If the trucks are half a tank or less, we fill up. We can usually fill up with the Gas and Go. But, again, to give business to both and to have that flexibility, I think it's good. So
How many cards are you needing?
we have 6 vehicles. So I think we were thinking, 6 would be the minimum. We probably maybe could get by with a few less, but then we're still, okay, if I got a tanker there and the cards in the other tanker, then
Should be
then you're
one
kind of
per
a
vehicle.
a deal. So it's kind of the bare minimum amount of cards. I really don't want to have to mess with too many cards, but again, I'm a little exposed right now.
I make a motion, we approve the fire department obtaining 6 gas cards from Casey's for their vehicles.
I second.
Any other comments?
Kane has a comment.
I got a comment, if we could just make them credit cards we could use.
You trashed the megaphone, so you gotta come on up here.
My suggestion would be just 6 city credit cards that could be used anywhere. If we're on mutual aid or wherever, Quick Trip, Casey's, Holiday, just another credit card.
Like Visa cards or something.
Yep, Bremer Bank.
Or would it be better to have a Visa card?
They do.
refill?
The firemen have a Visa card, right, Dan? You do?
I have a
Yeah, I
card.
got you one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a card. Kane has a card. But if somebody else is driving the tanker, they don't have a card. So I'd have to,
That's why
so do you want to have a credit card? Which then means they could go to Gas and Go or Casey's.
Yeah.
Or do you just want to get a card only for Casey's, limited to gas purchases? I like Kane's idea of being a little more flexible. If you're comfortable with having credit cards in the trucks versus
That's
a
tricky.
Casey's gas card.
There was, excuse me, but I used a fleet card that there was when I was working for the last company where I was at. And that fleet card, you would turn around and you would have a number for a code number when you would use it, but it would take down what the mileage was and be able to keep track of what's going on for the mileage. So you get a record of all that and it comes once a month on what was going on. That might be a simple solution to have that fleet card in each truck and have a number that's there, but it will identify each truck and the amount of gas or fuel that's being used for that particular vehicle.
And it can be used anywhere.
And be used anywhere. You just use one card and it's good for.
But that could only be used for gas.
Only used for gas. Which is what you want. You want to just isolate it to gas.
Is that what you're saying, Dan? Just gas? Is there any other reason?
We've never had a reason to get anything other, and we try to tell the members, very
It
strongly,
just-
don't buy gas, don't buy milk, or don't buy, soda or
We
anything.
put it on as a safety precaution that there was, because so many people were taking advantage of expense accounts and doing other things off of it. And with the fleet card, it isolated that, especially when you had to turn around and put down the mileage of the vehicle. And it automatically was, when I get the report, it was on there every month of what was going on. It was very simple.
Casey I'm assuming they take fleet cards because
They do.
they can truck.
They do.
I would assume so.
Yeah. So does Shell. They do. I used it both places.
So either a Casey's card or maybe some kind of card, like I said, if you wanted to get some kind of card that could use it both.
Yeah, this will go anywhere. You go to Holiday, you can go anywhere, as long as it's major. You can't go to Costco. But other than that, just major places that they'll always take it.
I like the idea of gas card just because you got 20-some people that could be using this, a regular credit card any place, and we, not that they would do that, but you never know. But I think the purpose is for gas. I think that's really what we really should be approving.
And I like the idea to have one that can be used anywhere, because let's say you're on this side fighting a fire and you need to come and fuel up, or you're on that side, you have options.
Probably mutual aid with Pine Island or Elgin.
Yeah,
Right.
So we can amend my motion to say it's 6 gas cards,
Well, or did you want to do the fleet card? That's,
or gas cards either meaning in fleet, gas or fleet cards.
I think you have to specify one type of card, because there's 2 different. A fleet card, I like what you're
Yeah.
saying, because it's controlled and it's tracked and.
And the truck.
And the mileage that's on it, everything that's on it. It works great.
And you can get those
Oh, yeah.
at Casey's or any of them?
Yeah, well, you'll get it through the fleet company, and then you pay the fleet company when it comes every month. But you'll also get documentation of the mileage and the vehicle and everything that's going on. So you can identify each one and where the gas is going.
So you want 6 fleet?
So I'll change it to
is there going to
motion
be
for
an
6.
expense,
Sounds like.
a
there is.
yearly expense to have
No,
these cards for the
usually
city?
it works, and it shouldn't be bad. And I'll get you all the information if I can help you out with that, so.
Well, then I think before approving it, we would need to know the specifics, if there's gonna be an annual rate or anything like that. Right, we can't, I don't feel comfortable approving something we don't have any information about.
Then we'll have city staff get some information on the fleet card.
For now, can we
applications.
put, oh my gosh, I know, because
This is kind of sticky.
you're okay for now, okay.
We're okay
It's just tough, because it's like, how long can you leave them without the ability
No,
to
we're-
get gas
with
at
it.
night?
Very little exposure,
Okay,
and what's the chances that Keen and I would be wrong?
okay,
I think we're okay. what-
Don't go
what
anywhere,
the
guys.
Investigation.
okay, thank you. I like the idea, I just don't feel comfortable making a vote unless we know about.
We have a-
We're gonna wait.
Wait and check into it.
Yeah, bring it back,
I
for-
withdraw my motion.
bring it back for February
Okay, Ryland.
with more information.
Anything else, Dan?
Nope, not for that one.
Okay,
Again, first responders, the runs are right there. And then the one, it's not really EOC, but probably there because of Pat. So I guess probably just, you guys are still having more discussion of how you allocate the 10% funds that you collect. I know you got the email with, again, where you're supposed to allocate it.
so we need to stick around and we'll continue on here with that discussion of, so with our 2022 budget, we have a line item that we determined that we need to identify how we use the pull tab donations. And in your packet, some information from Mike Ferrier's company is from this Alyssa Harrington, who handles a lot of the Fire Relief Association legal fees and everything. And in that, it identified charitable contributions as identified by that Minnesota statute. And we can also, for another Minnesota statute, 349.213, we can donate to police, fire, other emergency, public safety related services, equipment and training, excluding any pension obligations. So one item that was discussed in our budget workshop and talked about a budget was to donate it back to the fire department. There's one possibility. We cannot dedicate it to the parks, but I believe we could dedicate it to improving the memorial ball field or something like that. Something very specific, but not a parks general.
Yep, that's kind of my understanding.
And per the ordinance, we have to pay that out quarterly too. The funds that were from the 3 months of 10% donations, pull tabs, we need to expenditure that out every quarter to whatever we decide to do that too. So in your packet, identify those different. There was items 1 through 7 and 10 to 15 and 19 on in the sheets. Identified as the charitable contributions, and then we can do police, fire, whatever.
Are we, I'm confused about what we're doing tonight. Do you want us to vote on where we need to send this
Well,
money tonight, or?
We need to identify what we want to donate, the pull tab donations to. Now, we don't have to pay anything out till end of March.
End of March?
So we got a couple more meetings if we want to take this information, look at it a little bit more.
I feel like we've kind of talked this to death. Jim hasn't been involved, but you know, my thoughts are that the people that are doing the work of the pull tabs, collect the money should, especially since they're a fire department, and it helps our entire community. I think it should go back to the fire department.
So in the previous years, I mean, I like the idea. In the previous years, it's been around that $7,000 range. $7,000, something like that. So it does accumulate.
I mean, those guys work hard too. Okay, we've been over at Kelly's and I mean, they're working to work the tables and to do that. So they're putting in a lot of effort. to
I've
get
seen
what
them
they
down here
get.
counting. Yeah, that's just my person. I've thought that, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's something we can do every year. We can change it next year. If we come across something we think we want to donate it to, but if we don't want to change it within the year, but we should designate it when we do our budgets.
I do like the ability to consider different things. And I do think especially if a different organization were to come in, then we would reevaluate it and maybe keep it in our community versus if it was a snowmobile club from a different community, then it would be nice to keep it within our community. But this is our community and they are doing the work, and it benefits everybody, because the more this fire department can fund themselves, the less the city has to fund them.
And you would still have to say of the money, you know, okay, we got $1,000.
Well, that's
We're
true.
gonna
You
put
always
$1,000
ask
and I still
approval.
gotta come to you and
That's
say,
true.
I'd like to spend that $1,000 toward a radio or.
That's
turn out
true.
your-"
Right,
It just wouldn't come out of my budget and it wouldn't come out of the taxpayers.
Right.
Which is of us doing charitable gambling.
100%.
Okay. So, I'll make a motion to table this to the February meeting. And have council give it some serious thoughts. And we'll come back in February and make a determination then.
I don't know. I'd rather go through voting tonight unless Jim feels like he needs some.
I
Extra
agree
time, I feel like we've had
100%
a-
of what's going on with these
We've had
guys.
so-
Second, then I withdraw the motion, so.
Jeez.
We've just had a lot of time in it.
Tonight is not your night.
We just have had a lot of time to discuss. We've discussed it,
I
I
just
think.
like to talk.
We've discussed it a lot, and I think
So put a motion on.
I'll put a motion to go ahead and donate 10% of gambling proceeds funds back to the fire department for 2022.
And I second it. Let's do Jim.
Jim second
Okay.
motions to
All right,
give back.
you guys do good work with
For
that.
2022.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Good job.
Opposed? Thanks, Dan.
Good, thanks.
Sam.
Now with resolutions. These are individual voice votes. The first one is a update What it is, it's a transportation planning study for 11 counties in southeast Minnesota. And one of the pages, it talks about it, what happened or because of the pandemic, the Rochester City bus lines stopped picking male employees up a couple years ago. So there's a gap, and that's been identified in southeast Southeast Minnesota League of Minnesota Cities put together a proposal for a study. That study now has got some legs underneath it with the Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and UCare committing funds to the study. And at the same time, several months ago, there was a proposal to each city in belong to Southeast Minnesota League of Minnesota Cities that we would pay $2.50 per capita for this regional transportation study. That came as a result of COVID. And it is identified in our American Rescue Plan supporting documentation that it can be used for such transportation studies.
I have some questions about this.
Mhm.
Was Mayo picking up people in Orinoco?
Not in Orinoco, no.
Right.
We
Okay.
didn't have a bus stop. They had one in Pine Island and
And
we didn't have a mobility.
what does the study, how are they planning to distribute the study? How many people do they want to participate? What kind of questions?
So right now, they're looking for an individual to kind of head up the study. That hasn't been identified yet. I do know that I talked with the lady, the executive director for Southeast Minnesota League of Minnesota Cities. They have not identified, and we can hold off on this resolution because I shouldn't spoke. We should be looking at resolution 2022-02 first. That deals with just the resolution with the study. We can hold off on this resolution. I found out this afternoon that they haven't identified, if we did pass the resolution, where we would send our contribution to, which is kind of key issue. So I think we can. So they've got funding coming in, committed. They're looking for people to run it. But the idea is that this would be a study throughout the 11 counties in southeast Minnesota. And you'll see in the handout, there's one for Rochester and Orinoco, how many people go into Orinoco and how many people leave Orinoco. And there's one for every city. I'll send out the whole packet. I didn't want to burden everybody with everything. But. So in the case of Orinoco, 206 people come into Orinoco and 625 people go out based on this study.
I really like the idea of it. I just would like more information and more time to review it. And I would like to know some more details about how they're planning to execute it, just because study-wise, our community hasn't always been super responsive. You know, even with the age-friendly and the water, you know, we're just not incredibly responsive to surveys. And so I just want to know if that would be, if we'd be spending our money wisely. That being said, transportation is incredibly important, especially if we're talking about in having senior housing here eventually. That is going to be key. We currently don't have any sort of transportation available to mass transit available. So it would be really nice to have. I want more information on this before we would go ahead.
When we updated our future land use plan here last July or 2 years ago, we did identify mobility hubs in the plan. So I think it's definitely in our future to do that. And if we go ahead with some other large development here in Orinoco, it may have a mobility hub too, you know.
And this would very much align with, I don't know if Rosemary's still on, but it would very much align with the age-friendly. You know, creating a more age-friendly community would be definitely having something like this available. So
there's, yeah, I think it's potential is It's being sponsored by the Minnesota Employment Economic Development representative there, so there's very good support. It's been talked about at the legislative areas, or the legislative getting support from them for funding and just the need for it. So.
Is there meetings or is there a work group that, you know, we can look back on and get some more information from, or?
I can share with you more information that I may have. It was talked about, like I said, last April. Because of COVID, we haven't really had a meeting to give any type of updates other than through emails right now, so.
Okay.
But I think also if it's something that we're contributing to, then what's the feedback?
What's the
I think
return
that's
on
what
What's
investment?
the,
saying,
yeah, I mean, what's the return on investment? Where,
What would we do with that information?
what, is it that they're gonna help the community plan this? Or is it that they're as a whole for Southeast Minnesota plan? I feel like I'm very unsure of what the study is trying to show or prove or develop.
Well, that's what I was hoping in the back of the packet information identifies the funding is, you know, through federal sources for operations. There's a lot of questions, there's no doubt. Some entity, an agency, and they're just asking for the
They don't
cities.
tell us who.
Right.
I mean,
There's just a lot of questions.
it
Who
is,
leads it?
and it's,
I don't
that's
know.
why it's,
Depends
that's why
who
it's,
you're right.
and that's the attractive part about using our American Rescue Plan funds. It's not a budget item, it's.
But I don't think it is, because it's just asking questions, like who leads this? Is
Oh,
it an entity or an agency to lead the process? It's a question. It doesn't, it doesn't give us any details on what this does.
Right, I want to know specific impact to our community.
Right.
You know, what do we provide, what do they provide?
Like, we're paying $2.50
Well, those
per
are all good
person.
questions. I don't have answers for them. All I know is that we as a city within Southeast Minnesota, and if we look at our mobility hub planning, this is something in the future and we're using.
I mean, is the study just gonna say, yep, you should get a bus? And then we have, you know, we don't have.
So does Rochester have lots of buses? that
Yeah,
are-
Rochester's got
So
a
that's
very,
good.
very,
I mean, I haven't.
very good city transport. And as far as I know, they don't transport out of the city except for when Mayo was doing it. And they were using city line buses, but it wasn't, I think they're, you know, but it wasn't just jump on the bus if you're going to work at IBM. It was, right? Am I wrong? Or
All male employees.
right,
Yeah.
and so that's what I mean, there isn't, whether, I think they want to develop that, and that's great. But if they already know how many people are coming and going from Orinoco, what else do they need to know?
We don't.
That's my
Where are you
question,
going?
yeah, that's my
You
question.
won't get a bus.
All right.
Thing
I
that
got it,
comes
I
to
got it.
mind is remote workers, you know, for the most
Sure,
part,
well, that's changed.
people are not at the office. I mean, there are some.
Yeah, it's not a great time for this study,
So-
probably.
That's a good point, and part of the process is to help people get to the cities for Olmsted or Mayo just for appointments too.
Right.
It's not only just employees, but it's also for residents, just like you were mentioning, senior living.
I mean, there's no
Provide the
doubt it needs,
transportation.
you know, it would be great to have some sort of transport. I see it being more of a family services, Pine Island services collaboration would probably be more of up our alley right now than collaborating with Med City bus lines.
Not to say it won't be something.
Well, just, you know, because it looks like the senior end of it that you're looking at, they should have their own bus.
Let me give you more information.
In a big facility, but not in a small.
Not this
yeah,
one, but I'm saying the big one, yeah, they should have their own.
Right. No, it's,
And Pine Island Community Services has their own bus and they pick up elderly and take them shopping and things like that. I think that would be great.
right. I think that that's more,
Might be that.
maybe in the direction where we're headed, especially with our work with the age-friendly community that we're starting.
But I like what Ryland was talking about, is that hub at one point, that was a big deal to have something like that where people could park and the mail buses would come and pick them up and transport them in. I just don't know if that's a thing anymore.
Right. Very, because it was in the Pine Island,
Okay.
where the ice rink is now.
We'll bring this back. I'll get more information out to everybody as much as I have.
Okay.
Just at that point, I think that's a possibility for using American Rescue Plan money. The other option, so getting back to 2022-01, so we table resolution 2022-02. We'll table that one. So looking at resolution 2022-01, this is identified. We know there's 3 sources for using our American Rescue Plan funds that we got in back in September. Part of the funds that we used is that the resolution supports improvements in our waste and our drinking water infrastructure with some level and flow control devices that we installed in our 2 wells. We added, and Kane, if you want to come to the table and the podium, just to answer any questions too.
Rylan, before we move forward with all of that discussion, the regional transportation study is on this one too.
And we'll take that out.
Okay.
It was originally, yes.
Okay.
So we'll take that out of this. So back in June, July, in control, you want to share?
Yes, In Control is installing automated flow meters and automated drawdown devices which monitor the depth of the water table at our wells. And then we also installed heat pumps, which are air conditioning and heat units in both well houses as well. Those were the improvements we made 2021. Some of the work still needs to get completed for the drawdown devices. That'll be.
We also added fans in the chemical rooms.
Yep, we did some exhaust fan work in the chemical room, make those a little bit safer for the employees. Yeah.
And it's okay to use our funds for past projects.
Yes, well, this is kind of the very end of being able to go back and retrofit.
Okay,
Yeah, through the end of January.
okay, thank you.
That's why we was trying to approve it tonight, so we can backdate this cost for the 2020 budget. Can you explain just briefly why we wanted air conditioning in the pumps?
So
What caused that?
in July, August, we did have some very hot weather and our large well, Riverwood Hills, very large motor, creates a lot of heat when it runs. No ventilation in this room, it overheated. And we have some high temperature alarms that are built in for protection of the well, protection of the motor, and those did trip. So the motor would not run until we could cool it down. So we had fans trying to push fresh air in and recycle the hot air out. So now they're climate controlled 24/7, 365. They got a dehumidification mode. They can heat down to -20.
Would be handy in a couple of days.
Yeah, they're very handy. We haven't used natural gas at our one well site, and we haven't used electric heaters at our other well sites. So far they've proven to be very, very efficient. And likewise, dehumidification in the summer months and keeps all the electrical components, keeps everything dry and nothing sweating and.
Great, thank you. So do we just need to approve the resolution minus the
Just
regional?
the regional, take out the $4505 figure and line C under the be it further resolved. And the reason the information behind the resolution, we have to document all of the, in case we're audited sometime in the future, we have to keep all of our invoices and pay stubs. Resolution, so we'll make sure that's all. We don't have all of them here in the packet. We'll make sure they're all there. You gonna make a motion, Dana?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 22-01, accepting American Rescue Plan recovery funds with the removal of the Southeast Minnesota Regional Transportation Study.
Second. Jim, Richard, okay, thank you. Any other comments? Being done by voice vote?
Aye.
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 That's approved. Water and sewer. Joe, we have a pay request.
Yep, first item is the initial pay request for Stop Construction. In the amount of $259,749. There's a little typo in the item, it's $259. And again, this is, there is a pay request in the packet, but essentially this is the initial payment for the contractor to pay some of their overhead costs. They bonded for their project, they insure the project, they've been submitting all kinds of shop drawings. They've got a team of about 6 people that have put quite a bit of effort into, submitting shop drawings and working with subcontractors, suppliers, contracts, and starting to assemble the materials and equipment necessary to facilitate the process. As you also know, they did just a little bit of site work, which is included in the pay request as a kind of a small item. The recommendation is that we go ahead and approve this pay request, and then I would submit it to PFA for reimbursement as the agreements get executed. That money hopefully will be available in February, and at that point, I would make the payment to the contractor. I've let the contractor know that, it's a process and the city's essentially not gonna pay until it has the money in hand. So they understand that, and this is, part of the process. They submitted a pay request, and it's a legitimate pay request, and we need to move through the process.
So submit to PFA first and then cut a check.
Got to check when
Once
you
we get it back.
pay
just like
when
we
paid,
do.
yes.
Yep, just like we do with the other
Exactly.
scan tech.
That's what I would do.
Thank you.
So I move to pay Stop Construction for their initial pay request for $257,749. 749. I was missing where that.
Second.
So just go in and out of that whack and sack account.
Yep, I can check.
Any other comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's not a voice vote, so.
Aye.
very good.
Oh, that's not.
It's approved. We have, go ahead, Joe, next one.
Yeah, the second item is a follow-up on a conversation that we had with Sewer and Water Committee meeting a couple weeks ago. As part of the value engineering process, we've worked with Staub, and they've identified actually these first 3, let's call them draft change orders, because you're not approving change orders, but essentially you're approving the concept or the idea behind the change orders, which again, if you look at the Sewer and Water Committee meetings, there's some information on. But essentially what Staub is proposing to do is 3 things. One, to kind of facilitate construction and work around some of the lag times in material deliveries. They want to cast in place some walls essentially to the first floor elevation in 3 buildings. And then above that, they would construct the furnish and install the precast pre-insulated panels. And so the cast in place walls, essentially allow them to move construction along earlier in the construction year, not have to wait till that August timeframe to get that, for the precast panels to arrive. And that allows them to move construction along farther, quicker, and that saves them some money. And of course, we're not buying the panels, they're furnishing the concrete and reinforcing the walls by hand. So this is not an uncommon practice. And it does save a fair amount of money to the tune of about $25,000. The second change order within the SBR pretreatment building, there are some precast concrete walkways. Similar to the first change order, they can cast them in place at a lower cost and not have to deal with some of the delivery and supply issues. So they're proposing to do that. The savings to do that's about $40,000. Again, not uncommon to do this. We can get a good product, an equal product in my mind. And something that you should think about. And the last change order is the concept that there are, a number of these buildings are being constructed with these precast concrete, pre-insulated wall panels. And the construction drawings are set up for 8-foot wide panels because there is one specific supplier that only constructs 8-foot panels. And there's only a handful of people that do this type of work. Well, the people that got the work, they can construct bigger panels, and they feel that it would save them a fairly significant amount of money if we allow them to construct 12-foot wide panels. So that reduces the number of joints, it reduces, some of their fabrication costs and installation costs. We've looked at their plans, so essentially they realign the joints within the different structures, and this causes, I think, 4 windows to shift just a little bit. We've looked at the ramifications to that. It's a good idea for roughly $60,000. No, another $40,000. And the last piece of the puzzle, they wanted to change one of the exterior finishes on the precast concrete panels. They're specified to have a washed aggregate or an exposed aggregate look. And they were saying that they could save us another $20,000 if we went to a sandblasted finish. Well, kind of talking that through with the architect and with the sewer and water committee, we feel that aesthetically that would make a difference in terms of there's accent bands, smooth accent bands that wouldn't necessarily provide much contrast if the walls were just smooth sandblasted. So for $20,000 savings, it's still a lot of money, and it's, if you want to do it, we can do it. But the committee, as we kind of talked it through, was leaning to not do that. And so you add up the 3 change orders, excluding the sandblasting finish, you come up with about $105,000 savings. And there'll be some additional engineering to change the drawings and to design the reinforcement and whatnot. But that will be added to the change order too when the contractor will pay for that. So before we get too far down the road and actually develop the formal change orders for Staub to sign and the city to sign, we approached the committee and we want to, again, make sure that we're all on the same page here, because Staub is moving down this path and, they're not ordering these panels because they're going to precast them. And we just want to be make sure that the council's on the same page in terms of what's being proposed, why it's being proposed, and what the cost savings would be. One thing I would mention is at the committee meeting, one of the things we talked about is the panels are pre-insulated. And so there's insulation essentially sandwiched in the reinforced precast concrete. And what can be done to offset that? Well, the takeoff is we would use polystyrene on the inside of the wall and insulate that. And there's a few other little details that we've got to work through with the contractor in terms of how that joint between the cast in place and the precast needs to function from a structural and architectural standpoint. But there's a detail for that. We'll work through that. So that's kind of where we're going, and if you're okay with this, then we'll continue on that path, and in the next month or so, you'll see a formal pay request that decreases the contract amount by this amount plus whatever the engineering costs end up being.
Does that was my question for you with the insulation, does the polystyrene, is that included in the change order so that
Yes.
we wouldn't be down the road paying extra for that?
No, that's the, one of the caveats that we will respond to with the contractor in that. So yes, it's part of the change order cost, at least that's what we believe.
Same R level and.
Yes. And there's only, it's not all that significant of a cost, but,
The polystyrene, is that below ground?
uh,
Above ground?
most of it is below ground, but it's inside the building. But most of the cast in place walls are below ground. There's only a couple areas where they're actually going to be visible. And on those visible areas, they'll put a special finish and color on that to kind of accent.
So you really can't use that surface for mounting anything?
Oh, you could, sure.
Shelves, like, oh, you can, okay.
Well, no, it's in the lower floor of the building, and
Okay,
it's not.
nothing above the floor.
And we picked out some different colors in terms of kind of a overall color scheme, and we should mention that too. Maybe that's a different area in the agenda. We're kind of looking at different kinds of grays.
Mention it now, we don't have another place for it.
I think it's important. The recommendation at the committee meeting is that we identify, a few people to be part of a committee, so I'm not bringing this group samples and we have to wait. We can, hopefully get together, and so the committee recommended that Lori and Ryland and Kane be part of that committee. And they'll, as color samples and texture samples come in for concrete panels and ceiling tile and bathroom tile, and they'll kind of pick a color scheme and things that kind of make sense with maybe a little bit of help.
I make a motion that we approve accepting the three change orders for $105,000 savings to the wastewater treatment plant.
But just to be clear, it's not a change order. It's just it's kind of a draft change order or a concept. Just so,
Three proposed.
yeah, proposed or draft, let's call them draft, just because, so the record doesn't reflect that you approved the change order, because you didn't. You don't have one.
It'll come in February, you think?
Yeah, I would think so.
And when does that committee have to be in place, Joe?
I think it, unless the council says differently, is kind of in place. We're getting some additional samples. I got a note today that we're supposed to be getting shipped the concrete panel samples. So we'll see what that looks like.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Any other comments? Setting a pretty high precedent. Every month you come in $100,000.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, signify by say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Approved. Joe, we put in the taxable bond loan rates as an FYI. I don't know if that needs a resolution for documentation purposes. We can do that in February.
I don't think so. I think that PFA will send us resolutions next month with the agreements that will document this, but something to note. These are pretty awesome rates, and they're slightly higher than what Mike used to project. I think he was at an inch, 1.25%, and these are essentially 1%. So it adds up over 30 years.
All right, very good.
That's a new committee.
Yeah, definitely would be very interested in that committee. If it depends upon you guys, but that's down my alley on what I enjoy.
You're welcome to join us. To pick out concrete colors.
All right. Next item is streets and roads. And Joe, there's a proposal in the packet. So we asked them to come back somewhere December meeting.
So having listened to the council over the last few months and having engaged in some conversation, I tried to put some thought into what you're kind of asking for and how we might deliver that in a thoughtful way. And so within this letter proposal, I've kind of identified 7 engineering related bullet items. And we are requesting city staff assistance with, kind of some reconnaissance as part of this to really do a kind of a general traffic and speed limit evaluation. And then summarize that within the context of a report to give you guys some information about, where the issues might be in terms of public safety. What types of items are we seeing in terms of, consistency with signing and, speed limits and how we're addressing certain areas. Where accidents and improvements might need to be made based on, reports from sheriff's department or, local knowledge or roadway geometrics or, what have you. And kind of making some recommendations in terms of that. And then also kind of looking at speed limits and grouping segments of similar roadways together and giving us mapping to kind of illustrate, where these areas are and, if you choose to reduce the speed limit, what might make sense and give you some justification should you choose to do that, or at least some things to think about. So that's the context of what I thought you were asking for. We can change that. And of course, we just do this work on an hourly basis, like we do a lot of other work. I think the total estimate's about $6,250, which is a decent amount of money, but there's a decent amount of work here too. So
I think it looks good. One question I had is if, will you be taking the density of houses into consideration, areas where housing is more dense and then versus areas where it's less dense, as far as, is that going to be part of?
a density calculation, I don't think Orinoco doesn't have any dense population. I mean, pretty much look everywhere, including downtown. It's all low density.
When we talk about, well, we've had this conversation, like the area that first came to mind, that first came up as the issue is the Riverwood Hills area, where it's a little bit more dense than say further up in that area. And so we had a lot of, I feel like people were really in favor of changing stuff within that area, but not further up because of how the houses seem to, lots get bigger and houses are more spread apart. So while I agree with you, we don't have like the 0.2 acre lots like Rochester does. There are still areas where it is a little bit more dense, which means more people, more kids, more bikes, no sidewalks. So it is something I'd still like to see. And I don't know if you could just say, when lots get a certain size or then.
Yeah, the lot size thing is difficult because lots can be really large in terms of acreage, but have very little frontage, that they're all strangely configured. And kind of the reality is, I think that we should look at streets by their characteristics in terms of, they're 20 or 24 foot wide streets. They're rural section roads. They've got no sidewalk. residential housing, so there's people that wanna, you know, ride their bikes or walk to the park with their kids. And so, you know, whether traffic counts on a street are a little higher or densities on a street are a little higher, I would tend to look at those areas kind of, you know, somewhat monolithically in terms of their overall characteristics. And so then if I was thinking about modifying speed limit, I would try to be consistent with that modification, should you choose to do that. But that's how I would look at it, just from a consistency standpoint. And then people aren't surprised, well, I go on this specific street and it's different than this street and it doesn't feel any different to certain drivers.
I got a quick question. I know that Rochester changed their speed limit laws that they were for residential the first part of this year to 25. Looking at everything that there is, I know that the question last month came up on changing the speed limit to 20, where you wanted to have it changed to 20. And I think that was done. I came.
On the hill. Mhm.
Yeah, you know, off of that, I'm looking at keeping things pretty general to what Rochester is doing and maybe what the county's doing. You know, and not spending the extra money, you know, is it really worth the study? I mean, it's, you know, are we trying to go above everything that needs to be done? So, you know, and a part of your situation that there is there with the kids, which I really understand, because we have kids that are riding bikes in my neighborhood too.
Well,
That's
it is in your neighborhood I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
not in my neighborhood.
So, but it's just if you have a sign, I mean, we have a slow sign that's there, or even a sign that says children at play. Something that's simple to identify another sign that might be there to draw the people's attention to what goes on. I know that everybody in my area kind of knows that the kids are out there, and you drive slower because of what that is, and you're aware of it. But something like that just might make more sense instead of doing another study for that, like the money, that amount of money. That's all.
Well, that's exactly what I suggested last
Yeah.
month, but it was suggested we do the study.
No, and
So,
no, and I agree with this, but I'm just looking at, do we want to spend $6,200 for that? Is it really, are we gonna get $6,200?
Mayor, can I?
Agree with the price, but I'm just saying.
But I think part of it is that what we have found is that areas of concern that have been brought up, we've understood, we've focused on, we've talked about, but there are a lot of other areas that we haven't heard about that may be facing similar circumstances. And having a comprehensive study or plan to move forward would give us the knowledge to say, here are the areas that we need help with, and here are the areas that we need signage or we need slow, you know, to change the speed limit. I like the idea of doing kind of a blanket, just like Rochester did, you know, residential speed limit change. But I still think that there are other issues, blind intersections that don't have signage, that blind hilltops that don't have signage. There are just other things that we don't know about that we may be missing. And I think that's where the study would be helpful. And it is a lot of money, but I also.
Yeah. Mayor, can I ask a question? I'm sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to barge in there, but so when I was asked this question, I was actually wrong. That legislature had changed the law because it used to be that you had to get the permission of the commissioner of transportation before you changed your local speed limits. So the statute now reads, it was changed a few years ago, and now it reads this: a city that uses the authority under this subdivision must develop procedures to set speed limits based on the city's safety, engineering, and traffic analysis. At minimum, the safety, engineering, and traffic analysis must consider national urban speed limit guidance and studies local traffic crashes and methods to effectively communicate the change to the public. So what I told the council back then was that's less than a study, that you don't need a study, but you do need something. And so my question for Joe, I didn't mean to put Joe on the spot with this. I apologize, Joe, but is it your view that the study that you're proposing would meet the standards of this statute so that the city would have the legal authority, if they get the study and do the Stantec study, that the city would then have legal authority under this statute to change the speed limits? Or do they need to do more analysis to meet this statutory, you know, in other words, like, does the study that you're proposing consider national urban speed limit guidance and studies?
I think it does, not from the standpoint that we're, studying that and detailing that, but from the standpoint of using engineering judgment and, the training that we have, that all engineers, have that do this kind of work.
And will the study, Joe, because what I'm gonna read the first part of that again. A city that uses authority under the subdivision must develop procedures to set speed limits. So will this study, will the conclusions from the study recommend to the city procedures and how they're going to evaluate, for example, future streets that are built, in the city, and how is it going to set propose objective standards to set speed limits? Or is the study going to propose actual speed limits on specific streets? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we'd be looking at, generalizations of, characterizing streets and their use and, making a recommendation that if the council wants to reduce speeds, within streets that meet this general set of criteria,
Right.
You can kind of go ahead and do so.
Yeah, exactly. But and that's what I'm getting at. Like, as long as it sets criteria or gives the city the criteria upon which the council will determine what the speed limits will be in the future. Because I think that's what this is getting at. It's getting at, like, what objective criteria are you going to look at to set a lower or higher speed, speed for a location. I mean, this isn't really vetted in this statute very well. And so I was curious what, I assumed what you just said was the case. I just wanted to let the council know that, you have to do some level of due diligence here. It's not a full study. In fact, it says this in the first sentence, if anybody's interested: a city may establish speed limits for city streets under the city's jurisdiction other than the speed limits provided in subdivision 2, and this is the important part, without conducting an engineering and traffic investigation. So it says you don't need to do an engineering and traffic investigation, but then later on in the statute, it says you do need to do, safety, engineering, and traffic analysis. So I was confused about the difference between an analysis and an investigation. And those are language from the statute. I just want to make sure that, if the city spends this money, they're going to get criteria that they can rely on under the statute to set the speed in a different manner, if that makes sense. And I assume that's what this is. I just want the council to consider, the legislature deliberately changed the statute to allow for this, and they want you to have some objective criteria. It's not just, city council member X thinks that street Y should be 20 miles an hour, and you're gonna just, pick that. I mean, it's got to be based on some objective criteria. And I think if Joe's study provides that objective criteria, that might help. We've been talking about this for a long time. I just wanted to kind of let you think about that a little bit. And so if anybody's interested, that's 169.14 subdivision 5H. That's the authority you'd be using. And then I do think Rochester did a study. I guess I don't know that for sure, but I had looked at this a while ago. Yeah, when this came up, and it's published on their website. It says City of Rochester Public Works Department speed limit evaluation. It's 32 pages. I mean, we probably don't need that, but
I would expect nothing less, Joe.
yeah, right.
So what I'm hearing is we have to do it no matter
Yeah.
what.
So my question is, can we use some of our American Rescue Act plan funds for this? To, because it's safety and I don't know, so something to look into.
A good question. It's worth looking at if there's something in the Federal Register that identifies speed studies, that type of thing.
And just, you know, because it's the overall safety of our community and I don't know, you might be able to fall into that. I'm sure there'll be signage costs and things along the way too, so maybe we can roll that all into it.
Let me give that a thought. Look at.
Okay.
I got a couple points, Joe. I was wondering, you know, when we get into some new developments, and we've seen some inklings of that happening with duplexes and higher density people, should we under point number 6, make a recommendations with streets that have sidewalks?
You know, I do think that as you know, when sewer's here, zoning requirements can change. You're gonna see housing densities increase, that the city should consider how it wants pedestrians to safely traverse neighborhoods. I like sidewalks. I think sidewalks are good. They're expensive. That's the drawback. And they require maintenance and, but you know, it's a trade-off. So that's a really big question for the city to look at, you know, moving forward. And so then if you're going with sidewalks, then you're going to try to start to move away from this template that we have set up with rural section roads and ditches and culverts and really no place for pedestrians, you know, and well, maybe there's somewhere in between where we can keep some of that feel and maybe we can have some bike lanes or, you know, pedestrian bike paths built into the roadway and increases the roadway width and not require sidewalks on both sides and then still have kind of a rural section feel with some of the benefits of that. You know, there's a lot of latitude that we can navigate there. You know, developers are gonna wanna do what's cheap. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryland is in the, why am I blanking on the name of it, in our future plans, was there anything about sidewalks and curb and gutter in that?
The comprehensive plan.
Thank you. That's it.
I don't remember reading anything about sidewalks.
I think, you know, when that was done, the vision was really, you know, Riverwood Hills was new at that point, you know, and
Well, that's just a thought. If there's some wording in there or something to make us don't forget about it, that's the type of thing.
well, I don't think it's going away, and I think, you know, we should all start thinking about what that vision is for the community, because it's gonna come sooner rather than later. It really is.
And the other point, I don't know if it'd be in point number 8, would be the impact of Riverwood Hills extending to 100th Street. How that may impact, you know, the traffic flow in that area of Riverwood Hills.
I'd like that.
Because that's a possibility.
Well, right, but that's, do you mean this, the backside of Riverwood Hills?
To go to 100,
Yeah. So,
I mean, that's just.
isn't the plan for when that's developed that would be the first thing that would happen is there would be a road? And then,
Is what's been talked about. Yeah.
right, so.
Well, they have to do it before, because there's no way you're gonna get all the trucks.
Right.
through there to be
Right.
able to do it.
But everybody's just waiting to develop until sewer, right? We know that.
That's kind of the reality. They can't really do anything until they have the sewer capacity in
Right.
the end of 23, so.
The other thing too is when you're looking at doing sidewalks and gutters, then you're gonna have to be looking at runoff and drainage and all the other stuff. I mean, that gets into another whole bag of worms that are there, what goes along with it, so.
It does, you know, and that's one nice thing about the ditches that we have in the culverts. I mean, between each driveway, they're little ponds, they really are. And you get some filtration and you get some attenuation of flow and, you know, there's maintenance with culverts and that configuration too, but there's a good side to it from a water quality standpoint that people don't necessarily always appreciate, but I like that.
So, yeah, to me, I think the report it justifies what we want to do here or not want to do, but it basically tells our citizens we took the time and effort to look into this important issue. And I think it'd be money well worth spent. And if we can use our American Rescue Plan to support that 6,200, that'd be.
Is it something though, if we decide now, can we not, because if we do it now, can we go back and because we're in 2022, can we?
With the American Rescue Plan?
Right, like
Oh,
how,
we got funds till 2024.
right, but so, and since we're in 2022 now, it's not like okay. I'm just talking like how we are going back to pay.
Yeah,
Okay.
through like the 30th of January, you can backdate in a journal entry.
Okay, but now we are on the right.
We're
track,
on
so-
22
Okay,
now, but I can backdate another week or so. Yep.
Or we can table this to the February meeting and we can look at the American Rescue Plan wording, see if we can do that. And
When would you get underway with the study? Is it something you'd be able to do now, or would you rather wait till spring, or what's the plan?
I think that some of what needs to be done is just reconnaissance from city staff, and so I think that now and through the spring is that, once spring and summer hit, Canaan they're
That's a
gonna be
good time.
busy, so it's a good time from that standpoint. Does a month probably make it? Probably doesn't.
Jane, I got a question for you. Could you come up, please? So in his letter, have you seen the letter? Yeah. Okay. There's a comment here about signage and somewhere in here, I thought about identifying where the street signs are today or speed limit signs.
Inventory.
Is that gonna take much of your time to do that or?
I think within a day, we could get a pretty good inventory of.
Okay.
It'd be minimal.
I think, that's reasonable. We'll figure it out.
So, we could proceed doing it now. It's either gonna come out of our streets budget or the ARP. fund. So I'd rather start the action and make it happen before it gets real crazy with the sewer project.
That's true.
I'll make a motion that we approve up to $6,250 for Stantec to conduct the traffic and speed limit evaluation and report back to the council at the April 19th meeting. That's 90 days out,
April what?
April 19th.
Thank you.
Second.
I think it'd be an interesting study, especially when we start getting some of this data from the county. Any other comments? Not all those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Kane, one more time.
Yeah.
The pickup truck,
What's that?
pickup truck.
Yeah, the pickup truck. Let's talk trucks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, just stay there. You can.
Jesus.
So this is the line item I added under parks and trails. There's a map that's on your table identifying with the red or with the black line. The current trail that we've been talking about paving with some capital fund projects. We had an earlier estimate of, I think it's 55,000 at one time. And so this is from Estes Lane all the way down to approximately where that's at. That's about 300 feet from the playground, but more importantly, it's an area that will not be reconstructed with hooking in grain fields to the lift station. Is that a correct statement, Joe?
Yes, the only area of concern is right where we kind of tie into the gravel there. There might be a short segment that would be
That's
right in that area,
That's the general idea.
right? I don't think we do right here.
But the idea was to come back with a feasibility report with engineering estimate for the council to review, so we can go out and get bids.
So yeah, there's a couple things that we could do. If you want to just refine that $55,000 estimate, that we could do that, put together a simple letter report. And do that. If you really want to build this, we would need to put together some construction plans and a specification and send it out for quotes, just like we did the water main looping project. That's a much more significant effort. Not that it's a pathway, but there's still some effort here in terms of, establishing an alignment and a profile and placing culverts and figuring out how the drainage is going to work and things like that.
Yeah,
So
there is one place.
there's a pretty big,
It's about
huge
right
drainage
there,
way through there.
I was thinking that could be just a low water crossing.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do too, where, well, we'd have smaller culverts that would convey low flows, but the path would overtop and bigger flows. And, really the only economical way to do it, unless you wanna. So.
The path line. I thought the path now goes out, it's mowed out to here, but the easement is down through their yard. Where they've got,
Yeah.
features and everything else.
Yeah, if that is indeed the mode route, and I'm kind of guessing it is, then that complicates that route a little bit because we don't own the land. We have a utility easement there, but not an easement for a pathway. And so can things be modified to use that alignment? Yeah, they probably can. Is that, I think there's a pond culvert. That's what that white is there.
Down here.
No, up here.
Over here.
Yeah,
In a house.
by the
behind
house, yeah, in that area. So this is what Ryland's saying is if you look at the alignment, this is where we're going outside the outlot. There's a 20-foot wide finger that the city owns that, ideally would be used to house the.
I know the homeowner here was talking about people cutting through their yard and which in fact it really can, where it's supposed to be at.
But yeah, they maybe thought people are cutting through their yard and that's where they're supposed to be.
It's very confusing over there. It's like it's confusing over there to walk it. It's kind of, you do feel like you're walking in someone's yard and there's a couple different paths that have, I don't know, developed over the years. It would be nice to have a defined path. But a conversation will probably need to be had.
Yeah, we should talk to the neighbor, talk to the resident there.
Clarifying things.
Let's, yeah, let's not, we shouldn't do anything here until we talk to the resident and just get some clarification and share this with them and make them, share with them to understand exactly what the city wants to put their path and legally, we can't go into Riverwood 5. Or maybe we can, I don't know. We shouldn't do anything right now. All right, let's hold off on this. Now you can talk.
Yeah, it's 1,000 22 Chevrolet pickup. I requested a quote back in, that was September for this pickup in front of you. And we built this truck over the phone, just shoot from the hip. But this is what we expect to purchase. Very few options. The takeaway from this is that since we are a government, we purchase through the state aid or the state contract, sorry. We get a really good discount, so. Compare those MSRP to what our actual bill is, so. The plan would be with this truck is to use it for a few years, and at some point we would, we've looked into the Sugarloaf option of getting a new pickup every year, replacing city trucks every year, and it's a minimal annual payment. I think you pay for licensing and Ryland, you know this, come on. Minimal.
Can't be about $54.
Yeah, it's very minimal, but with those pickups you get from Sugarloaf, Winona, you can't modify them too much. You can only put on certain miles a year, and of course we'd fall under that criteria. So it'd be a good option for us to rotate all of our city trucks eventually. We're gonna work towards this. The ultimate goal is we'd have new pickups every year. And they'd get traded back in, and we'd buy another one for the minimal licensing fee and low maintenance, no maintenance, minimal wear and tear, and but we're on the list to be considered for next year, 2023. I tried last year to get on this year's list. It's not possible. Sugarloaf finances in-house. It's not a big nationwide program. It's just in-house financing, and because they turn around and they'll sell this pickup with low miles on it. They'll sell it and make more money on the sale. So anyway, this pickup before you is kind of our stepping stone into that program. We do have a new full-time employee starting in April with the water sewer improvements and our current parks. We just need another set of wheels.
And would this one then be traded in next year if you get on that list, or will we?
What we would do is we would trade in our oldest truck, our least valued truck. That's a 2009. And we would trade that in, get rid of it. That first year we traded in, we'd take a pretty good hit. But then the following year, we'd trade in our 2019 pickup. Following year, it would be this 2022 pickup. So we just got to build ourselves into that rotation. So the first year we're gonna take a little bit of hit on that 2009 pickup. Hopefully we never keep a pickup over 5 years, or maybe it's 10 years, whatever. But if we get in with Sugarloaf, we won't keep a pickup over a year. And we'll be paying that minimal annual fee for a new vehicle.
And once you're in the program, you're in it. It's not like you're not gonna get kicked out.
Well, I think you have to continue to do it. Every year you have to keep getting that new truck.
Even though you're trading an old truck.
Yes, you stay with the program.
Okay.
You don't ever,
Like
we've never been in it, so.
Right. I'm just wondering, like, if you come at them with a 2009 truck, are they gonna be like, you're kicked out?
No,
Okay.
I don't think they will. I just think that you'll,
You lose that
You
value
will
of that
lose
truck.
You lose, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Till you get up to the trade,
You're
right?
gonna gain that. over-
Next year
Yeah.
afterwards.
We still will have to purchase a truck for, what is it? We're kind of getting off track here, two different things, but.
So are the Just one more question about the Sugarloaf, but program, are those all regular cabs?
You can get crew cab, you can get extended cab, you can get two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. It's entirely up to us, what our needs are. You can put a snowplow on the trucks, which was a concern of ours, is if we have a truck, we want to put a plow on it, so.
In terms of maintenance, do you have to go on their maintenance schedule? Do they maintain it? I know,
Probably still under warranty.
yeah, is it like a lease?
So you do have to follow their maintenance program, so you have to document the oil changes, all your intervals, you have to document that. If it's dented or scratched, or if the tires are burnt up, you will pay to replace that stuff before you get your new vehicle, but that's the Sugarloaf plan. We're not in that yet.
Sorry.
This truck right here is just
This will be ours.
this will be ours, yep. And like I said, we're purchasing it for 33 and change. Well, in September's dollars. So that price could be up, and we may not get this truck just on availability. So my request to the city council tonight is I would like to move forward with this dealer on purchasing. I would like to go ahead to make the next steps.
That's a heck of a
Good
price.
price.
Okay. Any other questions for Payne? I make a motion that we approve the purchase of a 2022 Chevrolet regular cab pickup from Carl Chevrolet. A second. The funding for this pickup will come out of our capital fund for public works. Budget.
Which was budgeted for 2022.
Right.
So before you vote on that,
Is there a second?
Oh,
Jim did.
Jim, thank you.
sorry,
Before we vote, you want to add something?
yeah, I do. I want to say, if they don't have a Chevy,
You could get a Ford.
I'm saying I need a number to
You need
spend.
options.
And options, yeah. So it could be a Ford for 30,000, or it could be a GMC for 32, or
So we just need to make a friendly amendment that we are approving that amount of money
Yeah,
for the truck equal.
Up to.
Yeah, not specific. to the model.
Right.
this is the one we chose, but
But so up to the
based on
price of,
availability.
No, I'll accept your friendly amendment.
Is there an amount though?
A
Like,
dollar
should we,
amount.
right?
should we say 35 to be safe? What?
It was budgeted for 35.
Yeah, that's right, it was. Yep. Up to 35,000. Strike the Chevy and.
We still get the $10,000
Chevy
deductible
anyway.
that there is for government if
Up
it
to
goes to a
35,000.
Ford or
Oh, they're all discounted. I mean,
government.
yeah, I think you'll see similar prices with all different makes, so.
Any other comments? Kay and I talked about getting the vehicle here. And we're looking to.
Yeah, we're gonna
carrier or
look into
something like that.
shipping it up here if that's a possibility, or we're gonna look into what it's gonna cost two of us to drive down and get it, so.
where are they at?
Des Moines,
Oh, okay.
Ankeny, isn't it?
Road trip.
I believe it's on the north side of Des Moines.
Yeah. All right, any other comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Okay, credit card limit, don't go away. It's a credit card limit. So right now, this is your credit card that you use. And right now the spending limit is 1,000. And you want to explain the situation you get yourself into and why you want to raise it?
Yeah, so I used my city credit card to sign Jim and I up for some classes. So there was a couple $100, and then we were at, I was gonna purchase the fire department pressure washer that was approved earlier this year. And of course, I'm over $1,000, so then I'm stuck there with pressure washer in the cart. And So I know I can only spend 1,000. If I go over 1,000, I need your guys' approval, but say I wanted to buy 2 things. You know, so that's where I'm at. I just need a larger amount. I'll still stay under the $1,000, but I could purchase multiple things for.
So 1,000 per item, but multiple items.
Yeah, if I go over 1,000, I'm gonna come to you guys and say, hey, I need approval for this.
So I make a motion that we raise the credit card limit for Kane to $5,000. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. Approved. Donnie is taking another position, so we need to replace that seasonal position.
Correct. So typically Donnie started May, beginning of May. And we will be posting a position here to replace him, probably March. We're gonna post a position for a full-time position in February, part-time Donnie's position in March. So I would hope to publish it, interview people, make a recommendation to council to hire someone. So I don't know if we could pre-approve that, if I find someone, or if you guys wanna, how you guys wanna do it. I know last year we approved our second seasonal employee, Gavin. You guys kind of gave me the green light to hire someone. And so when he was our only candidate, so we hired him.
Looks like great too.
Right. But we don't have to discuss that now. I'm just kind of giving you a warning.
Let's see. What are you thinking for an hourly rate?
It'd be the same thing,
16?
15 to 16, somewhere in that.
16.
This would be strictly groundskeeping, mowing, parks, garbages, chasing dogs,
Where are the
chickens.
months for that?
Chickens.
Started in March, I think is when he was.
Start in March, it goes to what?
March.
Nope, I was gonna post the position in March, hire in May,
Oh, okay.
and then they'd work, I believe it's, what's in the budget? for
May to October.
May to October.
Yeah, beginning of October, like when the mowing's done.
So in the 2022 budget, you will actually see a individual line item for the 2 seasonal positions.
Yep.
It's got wages and
Yep, just entered it. Donnie and Gavin are separate now. They have their own lines. Yep.
So I make a motion, we approve Kane hiring a seasonal employee starting 1 May through end of September, up to $16 per hour. Second.
Is that something that needs to be posted like we do with everything then that you would?
Job has to be posted and
Yeah,
everything.
okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Sounds good.
Good. Any other comments? Not all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. I think this is just an FYI. Gas purchases. Right now, gas purchases are broken down for park recreation.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so what started this, kind of back to Dan and the fire department, first responders, is all the gas stations have gone to prepay or credit, pay at the pump. Casey's and Gas and Go are no longer 24/7, so that prompted, how should I say it? It prompted city staff, myself and Jim, to start using our credit card pay at the pump. So Bremer Bank, we use our credit card for everything, right? It goes to City Hall, they pay it. We just document gas.
Me and Kane talked a little bit about this, and since we talked, I don't think we've even seen each other. So there's several different gas line items in the budget. Kane and I had discussed how complicated that was, and it is, because he gives me several receipts. We don't know what's out of what. So then I had mentioned it to Ryland. Ryland thought it would be okay to use one or two. Ryland and I have not really come together on a final decision on that. I just entered the budget. So we have right now like gas for parks and lawn mowing, and then Kane has like a general shop gas. What Kane is asking for, and I have to say I like it, is combining it, gas coming out of one. But if we do that, I gotta go in and just, change that budget or nix two of them and have one. We need kind of the council's permission for that. I feel like we do.
Yeah, we won't change the budget line item or budget bottom line. It's just moving the
Wanna
funds
look at
around
the
to
fleet
one.
card thing?
Well, like the amount would be the same, but instead of having 3 or 4 gas line items for me and Kane to decipher through, we'd have one. But we need you guys to be okay with that. So you can talk.
How do you guys do gas now? You just
So,
go out and have an account?
So it used to be done at Gas and Go Shells. We would go fill up our trucks, mowers, diesel, you name it. Walk inside and say, charge account, City of Orinoco. They'd print out a receipt, we'd sign it, be on our way. They won't do that anymore. You have to prepay or use your credit card.
So this might be another thing, if you do the fleet.
Might be ideal.
Might be an ideal thing, because then you know what gas is going where.
This might be a simple thing for everything with the city to be able to do it with
It
that
could
fleet.
be. I haven't studied it yet. I'd love to
No, I'll
learn
get
to
that
study it, but
information, yeah.
I just, right now, it's like gas for Kane Shop, gas for lawn mowing, gas for vehicles, gas for parks.
This would make it simple.
I can spend all day just breaking all that down.
This would just be.
I'm
all
not joking. There's
itemized
days I
and
wanna
you'd be
just
able
rip
to
my
do
hair
it.
out and me and Kane are like, let's make it simple, So what do you guys feel? I don't know.
So did we talk to the auditor? Is that an issue on any?
I sent an email to Andrew. Andrew has been swamped because of end of the year stuff. He said, as long as you budget it correctly and we all agree to it. So obviously what we just budgeted, I can still go in and change, because like I just entered it a week ago. But that's why you guys have to discuss it, because we'd be taking like 4 gas funds now and combining them. So then when you got, like in August, when me and Ryland first sit down and looked through the budget, you'd be figuring parks, vehicles, everything together now. So that's why
So we're losing, we're kind of losing, well.
you're losing multiple GL numbers and combining it to one. So you have to budget it all as one
So,
pot.
so what we have now is one account is like $4,000, but 2021, we only used 2,000. Go to another line item, we had $1,700 of gas and we used 1,200 or something like that. So essentially we can,
Put it all
in those
together.
two cases, you can combine them into that one $4,000 line item that we have already in the budget. And that's going to take care of all the gas issues.
And then we still would have all the receipts. And I think, Kane, don't you agree? We would still put parks, lawn mowing, just so for an audit reason, we know all the differences of the gas, but just using one general levy number.
That's what we do right now. We just write
Right.
on the receipt. So yeah.
Yep.
There's options with the fleet account Jim was
Yeah.
mentioning. So that's,
Yeah, I haven't even looked into it, so I don't even,
It works really.
Yeah. we'll look
Can
into
we-
it.
Can we table this until next month and maybe you guys can get a little more information on
Yeah.
the fleet accounts? And then if the fleet account is a really great way to solve the problem, then the ledger wouldn't even be an issue because it would come in on that.
Right, and then we
card.
could just do that across the board, like the firemen, the gas for the city, and it just would make
Then
things.
you wouldn't have to make any changes.
Yeah, I
on
gotta
the-
study it. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
about, but it sounds good.
Can we table that?
We can table that.
Oh, yeah, you get
Right.
multiple cards. Yeah, everybody's got a different number. When you go through, and so you just
Mhm.
punch in your number, you got a free
Mhm.
card.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay, couple items on personnel. Jeremy, you want
Thanks,
to
Kate.
explain? I'm sorry. You want to explain the, your hour adjustment?
Yep, my children, we will be moving and my children will be doing open enrollment. So the school does not have to supply transportation. We went to the school board, we went to the school, and we went to the bus company, and we got told no. So I am asking, because I will have to transport my kids to school, if I can work remotely 2 hours a day and then the other 7 hours in the office.
8 hours. No, it is 7.
7, 2 hours at home, 7 in office.
7 and 2.
And I'm already working remotely sometimes, so not much of a change. It's just gonna be. Cause and then obviously on non-school days, it's not going to affect anything. So
So it's tied to the school year.
just school days. Yep,
Will the office still be open then for the same?
everything will
hours
be the
then? So-
same. Yep.
So it's just.
Yep, because we'll have Renee and we're actually adding a part-time person. I don't know if anyone's told you that. So we're adding a third part-time administrative
I see
assistant.
that one on here, yeah.
So it's not gonna change anything. And then when there is vacation or sick, we will work it out. So one of us is in to open and close the office and figure it out. But the school will not supply busing for me.
And Geraldine came to the, Lori and I, the personnel committee, we agree with the proposal, and it's a very, remote work is pretty much common, so it's just,
The computer.
I think this.
I'm doing it now. I mean, I'm
No,
doing it
I
now.
say you got a
Yeah.
computer. I mean,
So it's really no change. It's just now instead of maybe doing it 1 day a week, I do it in a couple hours every day. But then still coming in, working the whole middle part of the day, can still sign documents, checks. There'll be no change. Obviously, I sat down and talked to Renee about it first. Then next I went to the personnel committee. So.
I just want to make sure the office is gonna stay
Yep.
open at the normal hours.
Same hours. All right. I'll make a motion, we approve the city clerk hourly adjustment. For,
Second.
7 hours a day and 2 hours remote. And Friday is remote.
Who's the second? Was that Jim Phillips or Jim? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So all of Fridays remote.
Yep, because we're gonna have 2 other people in the office. 3 people are not needed for actually it'd be 3 hours by the time I can get here. Cause 8 with school. So, but if she's on vacation or the new gal's on vacation or someone is on vacation, then I'll work it out. So always pending on vacation and sick or death, any of that stuff. Not that I'm wishing. I'm tired. I've worked.
All in favor of the change, signify by saying aye. Aye, it's approved. We have in your packet, there's a CD, $100,000 CD that had not an expiration date, maturity date on the January 25th. Asking the council to either issue the certificate. It's a 12-month certificate for $100,000 till 1/25/2023.
And just to say a little something about that, I did talk to Ann Corzan at the bank and she said there's really no changes. This is the one that we've just kind of been re-upping every year. The interest rate, she said, is about the same. They do have longer CDs if we wanted to lock it up more with a little bit higher interest rate. But I think in the past, the council never wanted to do it over a year just in case we needed it, but that's up to you guys. So it is up and I just have to let them know here within a week or so.
Kind of a little bit of an insurance plan for a sewer project.
Right, that's what I was
We
thinking.
have access.
I was thinking, don't lock it up 5 years, because what if we need it?
I'd make a motion, we approve the 12-month CD certificate with $100,000 till January 25th, 2023.
I second that.
Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is an update on several issues on our permit schedule. And the changes are highlighted in yellow. I'm going to start on that first page. Up at the top is our chicken license. Passed with chicken ordinance last summer.
So that just needs to be changed to chicken license, not animal. It shouldn't have the word animal there.
Yeah, Renee and I talked about the word animal.
Well, their animal ordinance, so
But we got rid of
before, I think it's just an animal. with cat or dog. That's why I just added the slash chicken to make sure.
But it makes
we
it,
switched
it makes it look like you're asking somebody to pay for $20 per animal.
Well, no, I have to take out the per animal.
Well, I'm just saying though, like, when I look at that, I'm gonna read that as, I have to pay the city $20 to have an animal. Or a chicken. I don't know. That's how I read it.
Just specific chicken.
We
So
don't,
maybe leave the animal chicken license and just put $20 per chicken.
no, it's not for chicken,
Not per chicken, one license.
per license. See?
For like $20 license.
Or why do we
Have any
have to, I guess,
$20 license fee.
I guess I don't know why we have to have the word animal.
Or just leave it
That was
per
just how
year.
it was.
$20
Right.
per year.
That's what I mean. I
But we
think we
don't
just,
have cats and dogs anymore.
right, that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
take animal off of there and just have chicken license, because it's confusing the way it is, and then just say $20 per license. Easy peasy.
We'll remove the word animal and just say $20 per license.
Mhm.
5 hens maximum per home. For 1 year per year. Whatever it is. For 1 year. Okay. Next one is a facility rental. I think we approved this last year sometime, but we
You did, I
never
just made a
updated our.
change on the actual stuff.
Yeah, we have.
So that's just an update. The next item at the bottom is a grading permit. And this is for, and Joe, this is something that you're involved with for commercial and developments. We didn't know whether to say subdivisions or developments, but of being a $250 minimum and $5 per lot and reimbursable attorney engineer fees, which is really a security agreement.
Yeah, so usually for commercial parts of development and subdivisions, we have a securities agreement. A cost securities agreement that we get reimbursed all of the review costs back for. So this grading permit really is only used for, grading activities that fall outside that realm. And typically $250 would cover a simple grading permit, but you never know what walks in the door. So having, if costs are incurred above and beyond that, they should be recoupable. It makes sense to me.
So we've got 3 line items. This grading permit, commercial development, and then we have a grading site and plan review permit for under 100 cubic yards. And then on the top of the next page, there's a yellow line that says anything over 100 yards is based on engineer's fees. Is that understandable or is that confusing? Open for.
I think it's confusing.
But we do have in your packet, there's a sheet that says grading or site plan permit.
Yeah, I guess, I guess as I kind of review it, I think the grading permit, the commercial and developments is really, gonna be covered in the cost securities agreement. But that's really what it kind of says is reimbursable attorney and engineering fees. So that's what the cost security agreement does, whether we say something about the cost security agreement in there, I guess maybe would help clarify that just a bit.
Well, I was thinking in that grading permit, commercial developments, and to do exactly what you're talking about, because everybody just gets really surprised when you talk about a security agreement. And we have in the past, if we just put that in parentheses in the box.
I think that'd be a good
If they're in
idea.
front of them,
'Cause
They can ask about that, we can.
it's a good idea from the city standpoint.
Yeah, the second line from the bottom,
Okay. Put security agreement.
security agreement and parentheses.
Cost security agreement, yep.
Or cost secure, that's.
And then should that over 100 cubic yards be based on that cost security agreement? I mean, should that be reiterated there, or does that need to even?
I think then everything else that falls, you know, the grading site or plan review permit. So apparently that's everything else, right?
Grading site. Plan review.
I don't know the difference.
Sometimes that falls into a security agreement issue, cost.
What's that, rather?
The grading site or plan review permit. If we go over 100 cubic yards based on engineering fees, that turns in also to a security agreement.
That's what I want.
It doesn't say anything. I mean, it just, you could invoice them whatever the cost is. I guess that's what you're really saying within the.
Pay for work.
So if it takes.
Can I just ask a question? So there's the commercial and developments, and then the other one would just be residential? The grading site or plan review permit?
It doesn't necessarily have to be residential. You know, we've had a few instances where somebody wants to pull a grading permit to do some ditch cleaning.
I'm just wondering if we can clarify the difference between, because it almost looks like it's just on here twice. So I'm just wondering, can we clarify it somehow? Even if we just said non-commercial, I don't know. Maybe it's not necessary. It's just confusing to me, but that might just be me.
Yeah, the commercial and developments, I think the developments is referring to probably typically
Big.
residential development,
Like big.
but bigger, yeah,
Yeah.
multiple lots.
Right.
But plan review is different than a grading permit. Grading site or plan review permit is different than the line above it.
They are, or can be different.
And you know what that means. See,
this is all new. We're adding it, right? Yeah, it's new. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we all do know what it means, because I don't.
But the person who's issuing the permits, the people that are issuing the permits need to know what the differences are, and
We're
that's why
still
I'm
learning.
asking. But I mean,
We are, yeah, we've
Yeah.
never done anything.
No,
So,
and this only came up because I had a hard time figuring out what the price was. We had 2 of them this year. And it was kind of like, I didn't know what to do with them. Because normally, like they said, if they're in a big subdevelopment or whatever, it's in with all that cost. So it wasn't something we needed, but we did have 2 incidents this year where we needed to have a price. And so that's when this came up.
So Joe, as we start to use the Stan Tech planning services, is this something that would be clear to those people?
Yeah, I think,
Or do they need to get give us some input?
the planners won't be reviewing the grading plans, things like that. That's probably civil engineer, people like me.
So
I think it's interpretable.
okay.
We can figure it out.
So we'll go with what's there, except for the security, cost security agreement in the first.
Yes, that's a good change.
I mean, it's, there's no, I don't think anybody's complaining about the fee or the dollar figure, it's just the description, so. If we get to a point where we need to revise that description, we can do that arbitrarily. Okay, the important one is our water fees. So. Kane, if you want to make your way with files. Before he gets up here, so back in November, we approved a 3% to the flat facility-based charge. And so we overlooked the fact that we should have charged 3% to all of the ranges up through the 25,000, which is currently what the current fee is. So the the 325, 368, 394, 420 reflect those 3% increases that we'll make a motion on tonight. And going further, Kane, why don't you take us down the road?
Yes, so we've seen a 3% increase on each tier. First tier under 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 25. That's where our 2021 rate stopped, was at 25,000 gallons. What was happening is we were having users using more than 25,000. We weren't collecting on that. We had people using 100,000 and they were paying the rate for 25,000. We made some more tiers. We came up with some additional tiers, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, and then anything over 100. It's a 5% increase from 25,000 to the new tier, 25 to 50, and then 5% every tier after that. It's kind of based on the more you use, the more you pay. The more you use, the more strain you put on our infrastructure, more strain on our wells, the more chemical, you name it. There's a ton of factors that go into pumping water and cleaning the water. So if you go to the next sheet, I broke it down. Typically, December, January months, low usage months per users, everyone's about 10,000 or less, the first two tiers. So on the very far right side of the page, if your family uses 10,000 gallons, you're gonna pay an extra $1.56. Now, likewise, if you use 5,000, it's less, it shows the increase per month. That includes the 3% increase per tier, the 3% increase for the facility charge. That's your new rate. If you go down about halfway, it says new tiers. That's when you'll see a little bit more of an increase because we have these new tiers and we're collecting on some of those higher users. To put this in perspective, we had one user that used 291,000 gallons. If you flip all the way to the back of my spreadsheet there. So with this new rate structure, they would pay an additional $239. Now, 290,000 gallons, that's what our reservoir holds. So talking a large amount of water.
What did they do?
I won't discuss who it is or what it is, but
Pool?
irrigation, lots of irrigation.
Oh, got it.
So if you go back to the first page, this is something to remember. Most are in the first three tiers year round. Typical households are in the first two tiers, larger households, the third tier, possibly the fourth. This last month, December, we had one user, I believe that was over 25,000.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's a ton of users that are less than 5,000. A lot of households are 0 to 5,000. So
We're not charging, we're charging once they get, we're charging that added rate once they get over.
right, it's a tiered approach. So the first 5,000 gallons are at a lesser rate.
Okay.
The next 5,000 a little bit higher. So it's pay as you go.
Okay.
We did look at other communities in the area. Some communities have sewer included, trash included. Some communities have just a flat fee. You pay $4 for 1,000 gallons and it's sky's the limit. This is kind of a tiered approach.
The background for the first 4-tier levels up to 25,000. That was, and they've been there since our water system in 2009. So if you look at these other cities around here, nobody really has a tiered system. I think that was probably set up because of our funding, possibly of how we were able to support our water project by the more you pay versus a flat rate. So we're just extending the tiers. When I looked at July of last year, we had 375 users and 50 users were above 25,000 gallons a month, which is about 13.5% of the users, and 8 users above 50,000 and 5 was above 75,000. That was a combination of residential and commercial. So, and just for everybody's awareness too, when we start setting our sewer rates, the sewer rates will be based on water rates during January, February, March. I think that's the way it's set up. So because these people are using irrigation, they shouldn't have to be paying for sewer now. That raised another question about pools. All the pools we have in the city and people building pools, our concern was, because we were starting to see some of these high users that had pools. So we're wondering what's going on here. Why are they using so much water? They drain, evaporates, whatever. So that raised even a further question is what happens to that water? Where does that water all go? And so we talked.
Yeah, we spoke with, Renee, she used to work at Thatcher. We spoke with our city inspectors. A pool is just a closed loop system. You back flush your filter out into the ditch. And when it's clear, you stop and you might have to add some water to your pool. So then you just get the hose out and you fill it up. So depending on how dirty your water is or how much it's used or.
When people put in new pool, everybody in my neighborhood has a pool. When people put in new pools, there's a learning curve. And so like the first few years, sometime you have a pool, it's like when people, they're not getting the chemicals right, they might have to drain almost the entire pool and then fill it back up. So that's where you see that fluctuation.
So our concern, the first thing we thought about, where's that water going? Is it going into their septic systems?
On the yard.
So that's what raised the question where that water is going, because that would have really impacted our sewer. But the majority was just water to the flow, to the outside, to the lawn.
Yep, onto the yard.
So just a little bitty anxiety pack or attack there. Okay. Any questions about the tiered approach? Okay. I make a motion that we approve the proposed 2022 fees, water and the grading permit, description change, as well as for the animal chicken license. Editorial comments.
Second.
Any other comments? This will be effective this month's reading of January, so it'll be effective.
I want to say one thing about that.
Sure.
We have no computer access. And we're setting field assignments next week and reading meters. There's no way on the water end that can be done by next week. So if we could make the water part effective February 1, once our January reading is done next week, that would be great. Because of our access issues right now. And we cannot push water billing out.
So the rates would be effective with the
February 1, the water, just the water. You can make the animal grading right away. But the water part, because of our,
Sure.
okay,
That makes sense.
got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't you have access? Is it down?
The desks are ripped out. We
Oh,
send everyone emails. Yeah, the desks are ripped out and they're rebuilding and this week.
Okay. Okay, we're down to official designations. And there's there's official designations and committee reports. So we'll start with the first one.
Well, are we, just a second, there's a building license? Inspections, are we skipping that?
Yes.
Oh, that one,
Skipping it, okay.
we decided to take off because it does not affect our building permit fees. It just affects the fees that SE Building Inspections charges us, so it won't change. Everything they're proposing is covered with our current fees.
Okay.
So that's why I should have taken that off the agenda when I made the ad at the beginning of the meeting, so. Okay, so, official designations. Right now, the only, we talked about the vice mayor, and I touched base with Lori, and she would like to continue on with this next year as vice mayor. Newspaper is the News Record. Bank, Pine Island Bank. Attorney Mike Flaherty and city engineer Joe Palin with Stantec, and Smith and Schaefer with auditing. So I make a motion, we change those designations as stated. For a second.
Did you say change those?
You said change, keep them, you mean?
Oh, keep them, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I heard that too.
I was like, wait.
Mike's mayor, yeah.
Keep as is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I'm sorry.
yes, second then.
All right. Any comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. The committee appointments, a good way to look at it is, there's a spreadsheet in the packet. Identifying the current one and a proposed column. And then down at the bottom, it just kind of identifies who's on what committee, with an easier way to look at it. So I guess we can keep what we have. Jim is new to the committee for the remaining 11 months. And we have, Lizzie was on the planning and zoning. And so that would, I think that'd be a natural, or a proposal, I should say, for him and Jim Richards to be there. And if you look down at the bottom, Lizzie was just on the P and Z and Gold Rush.
Can I make a couple of comments?
Sure.
I would, I'm open for doing other committees because I've got time. And one of them a few of them that are of interest to me is the fire department and the water and sewer, because I know that's gonna be huge coming up this year. If you need some help off of that, I'll be glad to chip in and be on those committees. Okay, so. Very good help.
Well, that's an interesting comment. I know Dana, you're on first responders and you leave that meeting to come to parks. Would that be a potential Jim going to the first responders? And how do you feel about that?
I don't need to be there any longer because usually they do a quick review of everything.
Oh, they do, okay.
And then they do training. So it's not anything I would be, I mean, if I'm gonna stay, I might as well join as a first responder. Because I would be getting trained, right?
That's
So,
fun.
no, there's no, I just always make sure they don't have any questions or I ask my questions right away and then I'm able to leave. So I don't mind staying. It's kind of my wheelhouse. It's my background, so.
And I think when we talked about you joining, that was one of the things that I said.
Right.
It's short and sweet.
Yeah, it's.
And they don't need
Okay.
too much.
I wasn't sure how much you left. when
I
you
have
left
a
the first
30
Responders coming.
30 minutes, and that's about the time that they start to do their training and stuff.
And Jim, you expressed an interest in water and sewer, and I did touch base with Lori. And Thursday nights if she was to switch, Thursday nights is a problem for her. From if you were to go in the water and sewer and Lori to P and Z, that would be a.
Well, I could do both if you want. I mean, it's not switching either or.
Well, right now we have our standing committees have 2 council members
Okay.
on each committee, so I know Lori and I have been on the committee for the last 4 years together, so there's a lot of continuity there working with Joe and
I would say,
Yeah, I come to almost all of the water and sewer because there's so much you learn there. and
No,
then you
and
don't
I
have to.
just say, I mean,
yeah.
it's gonna be a big thing going on with the
It
city.
is, it's
yeah.
really helpful. You
Yeah, the
can't really partake because
No,
then
I
it's
mean,
like,
just the more I can learn, the
Oh,
more I
yeah.
can be of help to you guys in the community.
it's a helpful meeting to attend. Yeah. It's really helpful.
there's gonna be, we had a lot of communication that we need to work with, sharing with the residents and that type of thing. So there's gonna be a lot of information going out and questions being asked. And of course, we have Sandtech and their engineering services, which are gonna be monitoring the technical detail aspect of it and everything. But
Yeah.
it's something we haven't done, so it's kind of charting waters, but Joe has the experience too, so.
And the other thing is, if you're going to be a part of that, other committee that Joe had mentioned.
It's just all combined, but I mean, I'm more looking at what's going on down the road with that. And I think the more people you have that can help in the community as this thing goes along, it's just gonna take a little bit of the load off from the rest. And if I'm around, I'm available.
well, and I would say that 3 years ago, when I got assigned to water and sewer, I never thought that I would deny the chance to leave to go to planning and zoning. But I'm kind of like, I need to stay. It's,
Yeah, there's 7 people on the committee.
A
There's
good
5 residents and 2 city council. So,
Well, if you don't mind, I just, like to sneak in there and listen. And
oh yeah, please, it's open to the public. You can either, it's all zoomed or in person, so. By all means,
Helpful.
I'd encourage. Any other comments regarding what's being proposed?
Can I just ask?
Yes.
So Jim Phillips is on fire department and planning and zoning. That's the only changes.
No, we chose not to. Dana's gonna stay with first responders.
Fire de,
So there isn't a change.
no
okay,
changes,
So there's only one change.
so good.
just Lizzie.
And
planning and zoning.
planning and zoning.
Okay, I just,
Which one's that?
I'm trying to listen to you all talking. It's hard.
The
Yeah.
suggested
It was,
on the bottom is right
okay,
to help you.
got it.
I know streets doesn't meet very often. I mean, that'd be a 4th one for me if Jim wants
Once a
that.
year. Yeah, that's. You wanna just transfer that to Jim?
Because that might be coming up too, especially with when you do the construction that there is on everything else finishing up with the water and sewer. The streets are gonna definitely.
So there's, we meet April, early May. With Kane, we just kind of do a tour of the city, identify what needs to be looked. We seal coat every other year, identify where we want to seal coat. Joe suggests, because we're on a rotation with the program, but yeah, we can.
Sure, I'll do that.
So the 2 changes. Jim is on P and Z and streets. And Jim Richards comes off of streets. Good thought. Thanks, Jim. Jim.
Balance.
All right, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll make a motion that we approve the 2022 committee assignments with Jim Phillips, Chris and Lizzie on the planning and zoning. Jim Phillips also being on the streets, and Jim Richards comes off of streets.
Second.
In favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. On page 3 here. Review meeting start time. That line item there is a discussion we had coming out of Gold Rush. And about looking at how we can utilize a little bit more time of Joe or Jim's time on Gold Rush, but yet still meet his commitment to fire relief and the fire department. So in your packet, there is a review of the meeting times. I just did arbitrarily looked at the minutes, see how long they took, because it documented starts and stop times. And it was about an hour meeting for the relief, and then the fire department starts at 7:30. So Jim and I talked about this proposal and kind of came to a gentleman's agreement to bring to the council, and maybe it doesn't need council approval because it is covering both meetings, but so what we'd like to suggest to the council is that Jim would stay with Gold Rush from 6 to 7 PM. And then at 7, he would pick up what's left on the fire relief and then also be there for the fire department start time. So that gives us a good hour with Jim at Gold Rush for us. We can always move the agenda around where there's critical votes to be taken care of in that first hour while you're there, so. And you're still in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, super. That's an FYI. And there is some background information in the council packet regarding family members, regarding your case, the P and Z with Wendy being on the council, one for LMC information and feedback from our city attorney. If it's not illegal, it's very doable. The challenge is when there's contracts and things involved with that, but I don't see that happening in this particular case, so. That was meant to be FYI, so. And second to the last motion, I'll take it. A motion, we approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Does everyone make a motion to leave?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second name.
Dana Lori.
Dana, look.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 38.
Can you send me that picture of Russ and Sharon?
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Yes.
A lot of
Yeah, I wanna make sure to
material
put it on
covered
there.
tonight, but
I
it's
have
also
their
material.
VSW
Yep.
Facebook.